Remus has entered my body. I feel it through her nerves, see it through her senses as the soul of my former partner in possession swims down Remus's arm and into my body's neck. I mean Vita's body. She's in control in every way that matters. I've trained myself to recognize her soul's command signals and repeat them perfectly after interception, letting her control herself in the same way she would have if I were not diffused through the inside of her brain, my excess mass pooled around her spinal column. I'm quickly reminded it's a poor time to regret these things as Remus physically slams into me, trying to dislodge me from Vita's neck. I never expected to have this kind of fight, but suddenly I'm locked into a battle using my pathetic slime self instead of a more appropriate vessel. A battle that I quickly realize I'm going to lose, because Remus can apparently use his enhancer training while currently a liquid. He flows into Vita's brain, latches onto my diffused self and sucks it inside of him, cutting it off from my main mass. Then I'm booted out of the spine and into the useless neck muscle, smaller, weaker, and no longer in control. Instantly, I lose almost all of my senses. Without a body I have nothing but a comically undetailed version of Vita's soul sense and a mild sense of touch. I slam myself against Remus, trying to reassert control of Vita, but I may as well be tossing buckets of water at a wall. Then, before I know it, I feel myself being torn apart by a death I recognize from Penelope's memories. Back when her body was mine, she spent a lot of her time reveling in the horror of it, screaming silently within our mind as every step I took further solidified her helplessness. Much of the rest of the time she spent planning diseases and exquisite tortures to enact upon me when she got free. Though later, that changed to if she got free. Feeling her pain and loss of hope was, ironically, a far more haunting torture than any she tried to concoct with her talent. Again, I barely even have a sense of touch, so any pain that targets me while I'm not possessing anyone is distant at worst. Still, it's easy to tell what's happening here. Penelope saw her opportunity for revenge, and she took it. That's fair, I think to myself, and then I die. I feel something suddenly ripple through my body, like I've been flicked by an intangible finger. I try to turn my head to look at it, but I have no head and no eyes. Yet still, I focus in that direction and somehow see, for a certain definition of seeing. It's Vita's soul sight. The living glow with power, while soulless objects are vaguely distinguishable as black silhouettes. How am I seeing this way? Am I in Vita's body after all? I glance around and quickly find that theory disproved. Surrounded in a glimmering network of inert souls, that terrifying tentacled eyeball stares at me with a horrifying intensity. Immediately, I start pushing against the edges of the container I'm in, trying to break free. I fail, predictably, but I exert enough pressure on the opposite edges to start shimmying rapidly up the cylindrical walls and pop out of the top. More strange vibrations ripple through me, but I ignore them and flow away from what even was that, a bottle. I spill to the ground, a few bits of my body splashing off as I rush towards the closest body I can see. I refuse to lose my mind. Raw terror descends in front of me, blocking my escape. A literal wall of Vita's tentacles drop around me, countless in number. Shit, holy shit. What happened to her? What is she doing? Oh no, oh no, oh no. Yet more tentacles fall into the cage, and as I quiver in fear I watch them twist and bend themselves into letters. It's okay. Okay. How is any of this okay? Not a Nora. I freeze. Wait, what? She's saying I'm not a Nora. I damn well still feel like a Nora. Mostly, at least. Different slime. Ozoid. You won't degrade. Ozoid? Oh, ozoids. Aren't ozoids non-sapient, though? I wiggle around, flattening my body enough to confirm I can't possibly have a brain. You're animavorous. Soul still burns itself, but slowly. Can be replenished. You'll get bigger if you eat. Here. The words make me jump a little. Now that I think about it, how is Vita responding to me? It makes sense that she knows I can see her tentacles, but how does she seem to know what I'm thinking? I suppose she was just starting to figure out how to read information from souls, last I remember. If it really has been years since I died, perhaps she can read minds by now. Either way, my thoughts are put on hold for a bit when someone places a collection of tiny insects in front of me. And I truly mean tiny, each of them is significantly smaller than even my palm-sized body. Following some newfound hunger that fills me, I spill over top of them, a pleasurable tingle filling my soul as I feel them get absorbed into my body and dissolve inside me. It's quite different from the empowering, satisfying joy Vita and I used to get from soul consumption. This new feeling is not unlike a fluffy, airy dessert vanishing rapidly after being put in my mouth. Ah, I loved those back when I had Penelope's body. Though I never had time to eat one myself, did I? And now I'm comparing them to bugs. Ugh. I spill over and dissolve more insects, Vita occasionally chatting with me through our limited, mostly one-way capacity. With my soul senses I can look around and identify a bit of where I am, best I can tell we're somewhere in the forest. I even recognize some of the other souls around me. Vitamin is here, along with both Theodora's, and all of them look like they're in human bodies. I think irritated thoughts in their general direction until Vita figures out what I mean and explains. Not alive. Revenants. In love with me. That's a bit chilling. I look up at that expressionless burning blue eye, wondering how far Vita has fallen in my absence to turn so many people into slaves. I certainly understand the hypocrisy there, I suppose. But I had no choice, if I wanted to remain a person. Did she? Would you prefer? Vita asks me suddenly. So that's what I spend the next few hours doing. My memories, Penelope's contribution to them, anyway, hold wonderfully efficient strategies for learning new skills, not to mention a wealth of biological knowledge I can use to help form the artificial lungs and voice box described by this Melissa person with Vita as a medium. I have to admit, this ozoid body is an impressive upgrade from my Nora form. Nora are kind of runny as liquids go, designed for the ability to permeate into flesh and spread throughout a brain. I'm still a liquid, but I'm a much more solid liquid, if that makes any sense. My body is far stronger and can hold shapes drastically better than my Nora body ever could. I actually figure out how to speak before I figure out how to hear, because the former means shaping myself to replicate systems I already understand, while the latter involves changing my fundamental understanding of a system I'm already used to. The rippling vibrations I've been feeling. That sound. I don't have ears, my whole body is the ear. In fact, I now hear sounds with the exact same part of my sensorium that feels whatever I'm touching, and it's extremely disorienting. Learning which internal jiggles correspond to which words is a pain in my non-existent ass, but it's also fascinating, in a way. It's a challenge to tear into, one that I can take my time with and not have to worry about torturing Penelope or boring Vita or slowly reverting into a non-person. It's such an incredible gift. Plus, the work fills the emptiness. It's so strange to be alone. So scary. This is the first time it's ever happened. I didn't think I'd find myself missing having someone else to be. That's just a passing thought, though. I'll get used to it. It takes me about a day, but pretty soon I start figuring out the trick to equating vibrations felt with my new body to sounds I heard with my old body, and before I know it, I'm back to being able to hear again. Which means, very vaguely, enough that I'm not sure it's happening, I see her grin. I'll need to figure out how to read souls the way she can, because expressions don't seem like they're going to be a long-term solution. Penta, Vita says happily. Her tone is subtle, but I remember the subtleties. They're different now, harder and flatter from how we spoke with them 2 years ago, but she still speaks with our voice. 2 years, though. It's so difficult to believe. It all feels like yesterday. It's great to have you back, Vita continues. Can you make yourself solid? It's not that hard, I grumble. Though I guess I have more experience being liquid than poor Melissa. Pick me up. She does so, and I dutifully do not start to dissolve her hands as she sets me on her shoulder. Get into the neck, my old instincts hiss, but they hold no sway over me now. I couldn't if I wanted to. Shit's been wild without you, Vita admits. I can only imagine, I drawl. Which is why I just asked you what happened. She chuckles. Well, after Penelope did a little bit of premeditated murder on you. Watcher's eyes, I am not the least bit surprised about that, I grumble. I returned home and quickly had to start dealing with a Vrothizo problem. What's a Vrothizo? I ask. Remember those black orbs Hive Rock dropped on us, she asks. The ones I thought were eggs. I was totally right. I sagged despondently. Of course you were. So yeah, they hatched into soul-eating rapidly evolving pitch-black monster creatures. One of them tortured some hunters by repeatedly biting off their limbs and letting their biomancer heal them, then doing it again. But then she got so much human soul stuck to her own she started to feel bad about it. So I let her go. Every single part of that was horrifying, I say frankly. What? She says. I thought you'd approve. Solidarity between monsters. You were the one who said that. I just repeated it back at you in an attempt to get you to treat me better. Ah, she coos, pressing a finger onto me and jiggling my whole body, which feels extremely strange. I knew there was some Penelope in you. Of course there's what does that even mean? I jiggle back at her with as much indignance as I can muster, trying to reshape my body as she continues to prod at me. That larger slime moves around in a human shape from time to time, I can probably do just as well, even if I'm a fraction of her size. Well, I'm just a little worried you two won't get along. Vita says hesitantly. It's kind of funny, actually. You were always the one urging me to get along with her. I can't decide whether to be relieved or hurt by the fact that you didn't kill her after finding out she murdered me, I grumble. My objective was always the hope that she'd spare me for your sake. I suppose it didn't really work out. What's she up to, anyway? Oh, she's a first lady now. Vita answers happily. It's pretty cool. Thanks to years of expression training, years of Penelope's training, I don't flinch at that. I wanted to be first lady. She's also my girlfriend, Vita continues, and my mind just about stops. How does YR? What? You seem upset. Vita asks, furrowing her brows. Why? How does that even work? I nearly shriek. I know I asked you to get close, but you neither of you are attracted to women. She's attracted to me for some reason, Vita grumbles. But not finding her attractive is part of what I like about our relationship. No sex, no kissing. I don't want to be into her, I hate that stuff. Okay, that sort of makes sense, actually. Vita has a lot of hang-ups in that department, though I get the impression now she's more certain of her position than she was when I had her memories. It's a shame. I recall a few fun times a few fun times Penelope had. Shit, this is so weird. Now that I think about it, I was looking forward to having sex for myself at some point, yet that's off the table for the immediate future. No, wait, I need to quit lamenting my body and focus on how watcherdamn freaky this is. Vita and Penelope doing the deed is a weirdly masturbatory thought, and I'm in no hurry to unpack it. More importantly, Penelope doesn't do relationships. She doesn't do attraction. She has and enjoys sex, but it's usually despite the other people involved, not because of it. Our entire engagement was a political calculation where we carefully manipulated First Lord Johann Erebus' emotions in order to receive power, money, and favors. Vita, she's using you for something, I conclude. She has to be. Well, yeah, Vita nods. Cuddles, mostly. No, you dense dolt, I'm saying she's faking it. Vita flicks me, destabilizing the start of a humanoid form I've been trying to shape myself into and causing me to collapse back into a puddle. I'm an empath, Penta, she reminds me. I promise, she's not faking it. Honestly, I think she's just as surprised as you are that she fell in love with me. I just find her easy to understand, I guess. And she likes that? I literally was Penelope Vesuvius, and I still find her difficult to understand, I grumble. Nah, she's really not that complicated, Vita shrugs. I don't know why it's such a big deal. I'm not sure what to say to that, so I give up and return to shaping my body. I understand almost everything there is to know about the internal structure of the human body, but more than that I've got a very fine sense of what makes the external structure of a human body appealing to look at. If I can't be a beautiful human, hopefully I can at least look like a beautiful human in miniature. In addition to a better sense of touch, my body's proprioception is excellent. Crafting my face is my first task, as humans tend to empathize most with creatures that have attractive faces, unless that human happens to be Vita. It's nowhere near as difficult a task as I was expecting, however, which I suppose makes sense considering that Melissa purportedly managed it. I can feel how my face looks, adjusting it accordingly. The most difficult part of the task is deciding how I want my face to look. My first instinct is to copy Penelope's face, but I reject that on the basis of not wanting to die. My second instinct is to take Vita's, but I pretty quickly see the pattern there and decide that it's somewhat of a step backwards to kick off my new, non-stolen body with stolen body features. Yet at the same time those are my faces. Those are the only faces I ever had. Right. I'm blind. I kick my goopy little feet, dangling over Vita's shoulder as they are. This is far from the body I wanted, but at least it's mine. It will do for now. Oh hey. Vita exclaims. You done? You've certainly made quite a fascinating show of your plagiarism, I'll give you that. I freeze. Shit. Is that? Penelope. Vita chides. Be nice to my little baby shoulder slime. You already got to murder her painfully, right? Oh, I suppose, Penelope sighs despondently. Welcome back from the pyre, Penta. I thank you, Penelope, I answer. No, she grunts. It's First Lady Vesuvius to you. Part of my hand melts as my focus flickers with annoyance. She knows I wanted to be a First Lady, doesn't she? Of course, First Lady Vesuvius, I answer without a hint of the ice I want to put in my tone. Apologies. Perhaps she might not be so bad after all, Penelope muses. I'm sure she can be of great assistance with my experiments. She knows almost everything I know, after all. Yeah, Vita says slowly. Do you mean she'll be helpful like Theodora, or like Nugas? Who's Nugas? I ask. Penelope just grins wide enough for me to realize she actually went and grew herself fangs. Shit, that's cool. Also, neither of them answer me and I'm pretty sure that means I should be terrified. Ladies? I ask politely, glancing between them. Who's Nugas? Don't look at me, Vita grunts. She's your freaky experiment mistake daughter thing. Daughter. Penelope sputters. Nugas is not my watcher, that's disgusting. Hey, Vitamin said she was, Vita shrugs. And it kind of makes sense. You and especially Vitamin have an incredibly warped perspective of what constitutes motherhood. What's that supposed to mean? Wait, I press. You actually adopted Vitamin? Of course I did. Vita scoffs. You know that, you were there. Yes, but that was a passing fancy, you never loved her. You just thought she was cute. You don't care about her in the way a mother should. I want to say all of those things, but I shut my mouth and say none of them. Where does that emotion come from, anyway? That knowledge? Penelope never had a mother who cared for her, and Vita's relationship to Lynn is more gratitude on her end than anything. My silence wasn't quick enough, though. Vita intuits what I was going to say, and her gaze is scathing. I quiver as ghostly tentacles curl dangerously around me. She's just angry, though, not making an actual threat. Vita threatens people clearly and verbally, or not at all. She's misinterpreted the threats of other kids too many times and doesn't like being misunderstood herself. So I'm safe to push a little further. If things have changed since then, I whisper, why are you angry? Her soul eye flinches, looking away as her tentacles drop. I don't know why I care about this, but I'm glad she's thinking about it. Though I'm a little worried about making her too grumpy. You know what? Vita snaps, proving my fears. I was just making sure Penelope wasn't going to kill you before I head out, but all of a sudden I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing. You two catch up. W8. I protest as she reaches over to grab me off her shoulder. Where are you going? Can't I go with you? I don't care how angry Vita is, it's better than being left alone with Penelope. I know the sort of grudges she keeps. I mean, you can if you really want to, Vita grunts. But I was planning to go fight a dragon. I stop flowing through her fingers in an attempt to escape. Did I hear that right? No, surely I messed up interpreting those sounds. Please go with her, Penelope says sweetly. It would tie things up nicely. Sure I can, Vita shrugs. Why shouldn't I? Nora and I probably have it in the bag, especially if we can find some good reason to make on the way. Dragons are absurdly dangerous. I insist. You could die. Well yeah, but then I get to be a dragon, Vita answers, grinning. So it's really kind of a win-win. Vita, if you can't kill the dragon by just rending its soul from its body, you probably can't possess it, Penelope chides. Yeah, she grumbles. Ruin my fun, why don't you? Anyway, here. One goopy personified trauma, just for you. Possession? No, wait, I'm going to get stuck with Penelope. I wiggle and flop to no avail as Vita hands me over. The noblewoman accepts me with a malicious grin. Ah, Vita, she coos. It's just what I wanted. I relax a tad. That's the, I'm acting happy ironically because I know I can't actually do what I want here, tone. She's my friend, Penelope, Vita reminds her, to emphasize the point. Even if I did forget how annoying she can be. I'll be gentle with her, Penelope says flatly. Just leave enough of the dragon intact to get me some fresh scale samples. I want to see if I can grow them out of things. Will do, Vita agrees, wrapping her tentacles around Penelope and somehow lifting her and therefore me up off the ground with them, pulling her in for a hug. Be back in a few days. Love you, sweetie, Penelope says, squeezing Vita back hard enough to splatter my body. Painfully between them. Hey, Vita grumbles, releasing us. You two get along, okay? I'd really prefer to just avoid her, I manage to say, slowly reconstituting myself. Well, I thought the same about her when I first met you, and you insisted we could be good friends, Vita reminds me. It obviously worked out pretty well. When I said I thought you'd get along, I was lying, I answer bluntly. I just knew Penelope would want to use you to learn animancy, and if you weren't valuable to her she'd probably kill me. Huh, Vita says. Well, I actually think you'll get along, so based on current trends I expect you to be married when I get back. Bye. Not how that works, Vita, Penelope calls back blandly, but she seems to be smiling. And not using any of her double-meaning tones. I try to sigh, though it ends up making a wet flatulent noise as it passes through my body. There goes my protection against a sadistic, vindictive woman who hates me. Now what's my angle? Logically speaking, I try, it would be better for both of us to get along. Grudges are counterproductive. Yes, I agree completely, Penelope nods along dangerously. I propose we therefore take whatever steps are most likely to free me of that grudge in an expedient manner. Follow me somewhere private, would you? Shit, I walked right into that one. Quivering, I cease trying to maintain my humanoid shape and fully liquidate, dropping to the ground. Penelope starts to walk off and I follow her as best I can. It takes all the speed I can muster in order to keep up with her lazy pace, though. How annoying. If there was one advantage to my Nora body, it was certainly a lot faster. What are we, going to do, then? I ask, once the two of us are away from camp. Penelope laughs, and it's chillingly real. Ah, Penta. I have to admit, I truly am grateful to you for convincing Vita to show me animancy. I've become quite proficient with it in the meantime. I originally thought I would be satisfied with killing you, Penelope muses. But I was quite wrong. It just wasn't enough because you didn't suffer. You never went through anything nearly as bad as what I did. I did go through that, I insist. I was you. I experienced every moment of your torment. You know, Penta. Penelope muses. I think the saddest part of your existence is that you truly believe that's the same. But look at this. It's your own body, freshly budded, just for you. Perhaps it would help you understand. She reaches down and strokes her fingers over me. In terror I try to dissolve her, to burn her, but her skin ignores it. If you experienced that terror more personally. A surge of mana jolts through me. I try to scream, but my body is no longer my own. Watch her, damn it. I just got this thing. Considering how hard I'm struggling to not be violent, I really would have appreciated it if violence didn't cleanly solve my problems. Yet after establishing dominance on Melik and Gina, I was barely even reprimanded. I was reprimanded, at least a little. Not because I shattered multiple ribs in two of my fellow trainees and damaged their lungs enough that they might have died without biomantic support, though. No, I just got a slap on the wrist for that, which is a strange metaphor. Instead, people mainly got mad because my excessive force damaged the barracks. Melik and Gina, meanwhile, got thoroughly chewed out, which is a terrifying metaphor, for provoking me. The next day, I was back to classes as usual, except now those classes were significantly more enjoyable due to the absence of Melik and Gina. A couple days later, Melik and Gina were back for everything other than the combat classes, including returning to our dorm room. She's been ignoring me, but honestly, that's some of the best treatment I've gotten from Gina since we first met. Melik glares daggers at me, a confusing metaphor, every time I walk by, which is a little hurtful but pretty tolerable overall. So after all that, after I hurt some people on purpose, after all this time, life just goes on. Hey Lark, Xavier says, nearly unintelligible since his mouth is completely full of food. You've got your depressed face on. I blink in surprise, glancing sheepishly across the table at him and Bentley. We're in the cafeteria together, as Xavier finally managed to convince me to eat with them. I've got my armor mostly off, and underneath the table I'm busying my lower two arms learning to weave more complex clothing with my webs than wrappings and cloak. Sorry, I mutter, grabbing an unconscious mouse from my food box and swallowing it whole. Hey, none of that, Xavier chides lightly. You got nothing to be sorry for, so no apologies. I know, I grumble. Sorry. I jolt slightly as I realize what I've just said, and Xavier busts out laughing. Hard habit to break, isn't it? He smirks. Seriously though, you good? You want to talk about it? I sigh through my nose, flicking my ear as I glance away. Not really, I mumble. I'm just thinking about Gina and Melik again. You mean how you trounced them 2-on-1 like a complete badass? Xavier prods, knowing that's not right because we've talked about this before. No. I seriously injured both of them, but they got harsher punishments than I did, I press. I don't like it. I should be punished. They made you fix the mess you made in the courtyard by yourself, Bentley chimes in between bites. That's not a punishment, that's just work, I dismiss. I got it done overnight. Which is to say you labored non-stop, by yourself, in the dark, during the entire 12-hour nighttime of Titan's Discus, Xavier smirks. We would have helped if you'd just asked us. Bentley frowns. That's why I didn't ask you, I say flatly. You need sleep, I don't. I'm just saying, it feels weird. I know that Harvey vouched for me and went over how Melik and Gina pretty much wouldn't take no for an answer, but I should have gone to a superior or something instead of breaking their ribs. Hardly anyone seemed to care, though. Our combat instructor seemed happy. I think he's happy because you're putting more effort into his class, Bentley says quietly. You never really fought back in spars until recently. Well, now I know exactly how fragile you humans are, I admit, swallowing another mouse. I don't have to worry about hurting you as much. Xavier suddenly starts laughing. Shit, I love how you're not even joking, he chuckles. You just bust out lines like that with such seriousness. Language, I grumble, and he laughs again. And why wouldn't I be serious? It's absolutely terrifying being around people all the time. If I kick someone too hard, my foot goes through their torso. If I twitch my quills at the wrong time I could cut someone in half. When Bentley punched me in the face during our spar yesterday I nearly bit his hand clean off. Sorry, Bentley says quietly. No, no. I insist quickly. I'm fine, Bentley, it was a great hit. You surprised me. See? Xavier says smugly, waving his food-filled fork at me. Friends apologizing for things they shouldn't doesn't feel good. I let out a long sigh. I get it, I just wish Xavier would stop repeating himself. If there's one thing that's really starting to frustrate me about humans, it's how often they repeat themselves. I slurp down my last 2 mice, glowering slightly at Xavier as he watches me with a slightly uncomfortable amount of fascination. You should honestly get some cafeteria food, Xavier says, thankfully changing the subject. You're entitled to a portion, as a trainee. I frown slightly at the image of trying to eat any of that disgusting slop, absent-mindedly patting my own belly in sympathy. Pretty much anything that isn't alive tastes equally terrible to me, and if I swallow something that doesn't really feed me it still vanishes from the inside of my body like anything else does, but the idea of actually eating the vaguely white mush Xavier and Bentley devour by the bowl fills me with a special kind of revulsion. I literally can't digest that stuff, I remind him. It doesn't help me at all. Yeah, but then you could give it to Bentley and I, Xavier points out, wiggling his eyebrows. I curl up the talons of one foot, anxiously tapping my toe knuckles on the floor. I'll think about it. Though on the subject of gluttony, I should probably see if Lady Vesuvius would be willing to increase my food allotment. For mice feels like it's not taking the edge off as much anymore. It's like my stomach is getting annoyed with me for only feeding it the bare minimum possible. Xavier nods in an understanding manner, wolfing down more of his food. Well, if you ever start feeling a bit too munchy, he says after swallowing, feel free to swallow one of my hands. Especially if it's before a big test, I can always use the extra study time. I stiffen, momentarily paralyzed by a wretched mix of memory and temptation. He said it was okay. He said it was okay. That means I can, right? It would be fine. Lady Vesuvius could heal him without issue, I bet. It would at Ack. No. Xavier, I say firmly. Please don't ever joke about that again. He blinks, nodding slowly. All right, he concedes. I won't. My bad. Thank you. I stand up, my body shaking a little as it screams to hunt. With a twitch of my claws I cut the threads of my weaving project free from hands, draping the half-finished sleeve thing over my shoulder as I turn to walk away. Hey, Lark. Bentley calls out, stopping me in my tracks. My ears are flat against my head and it's an effort of will to not extend my quills at him. Which would not be appropriate because he is my friend, even though I tried to kill him that one time. I think it's really, really cool how hard you try, Bentley continues. Can confirm, Xavier chimes in. You're pretty cool. Don't forget it. I sigh. So you've both told me, I say flatly. Over a dozen times each. Why do you keep repeating it? Because I know, incredibly depressed and in desperate need of positive reinforcement when I see it, Xavier says, and though I'm not facing him I can practically feel him make a lopsided grin. So if you want me to stop, you're going to have to start believing me. Or just be good enough at hiding it that I don't notice anymore, I guess. It'd be unfair of me to not allow that strategy. I glance back at him and raise an eyebrow. Sure enough, he's flashing a sardonic grin my way. I do like Xavier, but times like these I find him really, really hard to understand. He can be a lot. I'll be okay, I reassure him. I just need to move around a little before we go to history class. Not entirely accurate, but it's a much easier thing to say than, I plan to go get down on 6 limbs in the courtyard and vibrate my quills until I'm nothing but a frozen, black circle pulsing in the daylight. I wish they absorbed sound like they do light and heat, so I could also spend the time screaming. Still, I feel better after stretching my back a bit, though I wish I had a hot bath to do it in. I suppose I'm technically allowed in the baths in the barracks, but I accidentally terrified a few people when I tried it a few days ago. Plus, they just aren't that warm, and generally nowhere near as nice as Galdra's bath. Hopefully I'll figure out how to channel soon and can learn some thermomancy. Once I'm fairly certain class will start in 5 minutes or so, I quickly wind down, ceasing my quill's vibrations and standing back up on 2 legs, stretching the rest of my body. Someone else entered the courtyard and stopped nearby, but I'm a bit surprised when I glance over and realize she's been staring at me, possibly the whole time she's been here. It's a woman of middling height, light brown skin, brown eyes, brown hair, and a barely perceptible collection of small scars around her face, particularly her eyes and nose, that look like they're from fingernails. On her back she carries a set of full Templar armor, strapped up for transport and adorned with the black stripes of the Inquisition. In one hand she has a thick stack of papers. She steps forward and she extends her other gloved hand to shake, giving me a tired smile. You must be Lark, then, the woman says. I splay my toes a bit, trying to hide my nervousness as I reach out to accept her handshake. I've never seen this lady before in my life, but I suppose anyone in this part of the barracks is cleared to know about me. She smells quite weak, though, at least by Templar standards. She'd go down in under a second. Easy meal. That's me, I say out loud, letting her control the speed and force of the handshake. Something about this woman seems odd, and I'm not quite sure how to put my finger on it. Inquisitor Captain Jelisaveta, I suppose, she introduces herself. In the coming days I'll be replacing High Templar Galdra Carthala as your escort. The documentation says handler, but I don't really like that wording. I open my mouth to say something, but no words come out so I close it again. What? Is Galdra leaving? But she's been so nice to me. It's sad to have her unexpectedly replaced like this, but more important than that. You are a terrible replacement for the High Templar, ma'am, I say frankly. The woman seems more curious than offended. Her eyes flick quickly over me, darting across my body for some purpose I can't divine. What makes you say that? She asks me. Galdra is a deterrent, I say. Galdra can stop me if I try to hurt people. You can't. Captain Jelisaveta allows understandingly. Is that a problem that's come up recently? Or do you plan to go around eating people now that she's away? No. I protest immediately. No, I mean, I did injure a couple of my fellow trainees, but I didn't bite them or anything. I don't want to hurt anyone, ma'am. She starts to respond, but a yawn cuts her off. I wait for her to continue. Well, how about you just do me a favor and continue not hurting anyone, then, she asks blandly. My room in the barracks is across from yours. Knock if you want or need to go anywhere. I'm taking a nap. With that, she departs, leaving me speechless. I suppose I have somewhere to be, though, so I show up to history class moments before it starts, taking my seat and immediately restarting on my weaving project. I'm getting faster and faster at reading, and these classes seem to just be the instructor rambling about the things we were assigned to read beforehand anyway. Said instructor doesn't seem to like it very much, but I've given up trying to get her to like me. Today is going to be a little different from usual, she says, causing me to twist my ears her way. Though we'll still be reviewing the material you were assigned tomorrow, we're going to do a surprise segment on much more recent history, the Ars Crisis. I don't know what that is, so I stop weaving and look up. I know that all of you were alive during this period, which makes it a somewhat strange subject to cover in a church history class. But arguably it is because of the strong emotions tied to that fraught period in Valka's relatively brief life as a country that we must look back and re-examine it with fresh eyes, as openly and with as little bias as we can muster. Not that the unbiased telling of events paints ours as anything less than an unrepentant, blasphemous monster either. I hesitantly raise my hand to ask permission to speak. The instructor glowers at me a little, but calls my name. What is it, Lark? She asks. I don't believe I was alive for this period, I say hesitantly. Unless it just never reached the places I was living. I can almost feel the rest of the class wonder how old I am before coming to the inevitable conclusion. I try not to wince. Humans always act strangely about my age. Well, the instructor sighs, this actually presents us with a convenient segue. Much like our current crisis with the Vrothizo, the threat had been out there, growing in strength for years, but only when it was dropped on top of our heads did we truly become aware of the extent of the danger. My ears go flat against my head, but I shut up as the instructor continues to speak. Ars was a master animancer, specializing in the creation of enslaved soul amalgamations and subverting his enemies into allies. Before we became aware of the crisis, he had already become a First Lord and High Inquisitor, likely through the corruption of his betters. For all his faults, however, he was clever and subtle. It is entirely possible that we would have never noticed his perversion were he not betrayed by two of his own creations, Manus and Interitus. Together, they secretly compiled proof of Ars' wrongdoing and released it as publicly as possible, preventing Ars from using animancy to wipe the problem away by simply creating too many people who knew the truth. This worked, and the purging of Ars' evil began in earnest, though with the downside of inciting the people of Valka into a nearly uncontrollable panic. She flicks her fingers rapidly, and soon an illusory scene springs to life in front of her, a street aflame, Templars trapped between an angry mob and other, Ars corrupted Templars. Ars leaned into this chaos, the instructor continues, and the first part of the Ars crisis began in earnest. He would alter the minds of people seemingly at random, turning them into assassins or double agents in public ways that demanded attention from the Templars, splitting our forces while he corrupted more and more of us on the side. Many of the most talented members of the Inquisition were his puppets, and they spread their influence to nearly half the Inquisition's numbers, abusing a weakness in the decontamination procedures of the time to slip mental influence by our people unnoticed. Eventually, a new method of detecting and decontaminating an individual from Ars' influence was formalized. These procedures, developed by the now current High Inquisitor Shamil, formed the backbone of our ability to fight against Ars' mind-bending influence. Rather than running around desperately trying to put out metaphorical and literal fires, we could establish a secure and reliable force with which to go on the offensive. The illusory scene changes, now showing squads of Templars sizing up against twisted caricatures of what I assume to be Ars and his followers. Unfortunately, while the Inquisition was inoculated against his influence, they lacked the numbers to protect everyone in Skyhope from his control. Ars cared little for collateral damage, teleporting around the city using the abilities of one of his splices, working on what he could, and escaping before the Inquisition could catch him. Eventually, however, we outpredicted him, and the first official kill on Ars is attributed to High Templar Braum the Ubiquitous. A ripple of confusion and worry pulses through the room, and our instructor smiles grimly. Yes, you heard me right, she says. The first kill. Thus we get to the second half of the Ars crisis, where it was revealed the man had the ability to take new bodies upon death. Most of the general public doesn't know about this, but thanks to Inquisitor Captain Manus we discovered Ars was alive and well before it was too late. Rumors of this ability escaped, but we did our best to quash them and control the public terror that followed. It is, however, real, and over the course of the continued crisis that followed, which was publicly blamed on the chaos caused by the Splices and other Ars loyalists still active following his initial death, Ars was slain in battle no less than 5 other times, only to reappear as someone new. We named the ephemeral, body-hopping monster Ars. Turned himself into Lich, and devoted ourselves to stopping it. To end the crisis, our High Templars worked with Inquisitor Captain Manus in order to capture Ars alive, trapping him in his own body rather than allowing him to take a new one and escape again. The final illusion shows a man wrapped in restraints, being taken out of the city and locked away. Then, it winks out, the instructor clasping her hands behind her back as she looks out at the class. Now, the more thoughtful among you are asking yourselves, why are we discussing this now? Well, as I'm sure you know, a few days ago our city entered a skirmish with a powerful necromancer. This necromancer single-handedly defeated 3 of our army's tactical officers by herself, killing 2 of them before fleeing. Before her escape, however, she identified herself as Vita. The same name as the child of Ars Rainier, and now confirmed to be history's second Lich. It is believed that Ars himself is free as well, though his whereabouts are unknown. The instructor casts a sad smile over the class. One could argue you picked a rather poor time to join the Templars, she admits. Should you graduate, you can expect yourselves to be facing not only Hiveric's brood, but the revival of the greatest threat of our generation. Obviously, everything you've learned today is top secret, and revealing it to anyone outside this barracks is grounds for immediate expulsion from the trainee program and serious punishment on top of that. Questions and answers start to fly around me, though most of my attention is stolen as I glance towards Bentley, who looks almost physically ill at the news. Vita. She's back, she's alive. I'd heard the rumors, but to have it spelled out so plainly in front of me. It's a chilling feeling, knowing the monster I owe my life to still prowls around. I wish I had a better impression of who she is. Should I talk with Bentley? It might help him to have someone to talk to about Vita, but this seems pretty personal and I'd really just be doing it for my own curiosity. The question is mostly irrelevant, I guess, because we're too busy to start a conversation as we sit through class after class. Different people treat the news differently. Gina and Xavier don't seem to be affected much, Harvey as well, as hard for me to read as always, but to my surprise, Melik of all people seems extra disturbed. He barely even glares at me for the whole rest of the day. After class I'm no less busy. I have an appointment with Lady Vesuvius, which means I need to promptly get all my armor back on, return to the dorms, and well, normally I would wait for Lady Carthala, but I suppose I need to knock on Captain Jelisavetta's door instead. I do so, then wait silently as I feel her wake up. It doesn't take her long, just a minute or so and she's finished dressing, at the door. You need something, trainee? She asks, and I get that weird feeling again. What is oh? She doesn't recognize me because of the armor, I bet. It's Lark, ma'am, I remind her helpfully. I know, she says. We met a few hours ago. Do you have somewhere you need to be? She's in uniform, so I can't see her expression, but I guess I was just wrong. She recognized me through my disguise somehow. Which is weird because I don't know. She just acts weird. She's so nonchalant. I have an appointment with my assigned biomancer, First Lady Vesuvius, I inform her. Wow, that figures, Captain Jelisaveta sighs. Sure. Let's get going, then. That's it, huh? Have you, seen a Vrothizo before? I ask. I got eaten by one, actually, she answers. Partially, anyway. My team saved my life and Lady Vesuvius regrew my limbs. Oh, I murmur. Another hard fail on that prediction. I guess I'm not as good at understanding people as I thought. Sorry about that. Not like you ate me, Captain Jelisaveta answers, shrugging as she exits her room. I quickly follow her. I'm just surprised you don't seem nervous, I admit. Or fascinated, I guess. Most people are one or the other around me. It's only Xavier and Penelope that seem fascinated, but there's no reason to call them out on that. I'm too tired to be nervous, Captain Jelisaveta grunts. Don't worry about it. Oh no, are you okay? I ask seriously. I know humans get tired all the time, but my only real experience with extended, full-bodied exhaustion comes from moments where I'm seriously injured and low on blood. It's not a fun experience, and I doubt it's much less awful to live through just because it happens to humans a lot. I'll be fine, she answers, nodding. Thanks for asking. You are very polite. I blink, jolting a little as we walk. I thank you, I say, meaning it. I was taught that it's always good to be polite. Oh yeah, she asks, and I immediately regret my answer because she then says, by who? I glance away, trying to focus on anything other than the taste of his blood falling down my throat. A very good man, I admit. One I ended up killing. I see, Captain Jelisaveta answers, and we remain silent until reaching Lady Vesuvius' laboratory. The huge, mostly wooden building has the same sharp smell as always, one I've gotten used to over the dozen or so times I've been here. Captain Jelisaveta seems to be looking around with great interest, however. I suppose most people haven't ever been inside. It doesn't take long for us to be escorted to the room Lady Vesuvius does her usual checkups in, and sure enough she's waiting for us when we enter. Welcome, Lark, she says, smiling cheerfully. And is this Inquisitor Captain Jelisaveta? Congratulations on the promotion. Thank you, my lady, Jelisaveta says politely, and my ears twitch slightly as I almost hear Lady Vesuvius whisper something under her breath. It's so quiet I can't make out a single word of it, though. Well, go ahead and get most of that armor off, Lark, Lady Vesuvius says primly. Captain, if you'd wait outside. Captain Jelisaveta bows slightly and exits, waiting on the other side of the door. No fussing about like Galdra does. I almost miss it until I think about what she used to do to my ears. I don't really have anything fancy on the agenda today, just a general checkup. Lady Vesuvius reports. Huh, she seems kind of tired, too. Well, I can't say I mind, I admit. It's not really fun getting bits of me chopped off. She smiles thinly. Sorry about that, she says. But knowing how fast your kind regenerates could potentially be life-saving data. I understand, I tell her, meaning it. Do whatever you have to in order to protect people from my brothers and sisters. I fear it will be your nieces and nephews soon, as well, Lady Vesuvius sighs, starting to cast her analysis spell as I finish stripping down to my underwear. I estimate your body will reach sexual maturity sometime within the next 6 months, possibly as soon as 1 month. If we assume your siblings grow at a similar rate, well, our exponential problem will start its multiplication soon. Speaking of, make sure to report to me if you start feeling any abnormalities in your body or its natural urges. I nod slowly. That sounds bad. All I have to report is that I feel like I need more food, I tell her. I'm getting hungrier more quickly and feeling less satisfied by meals. Lady Vesuvius hums. How bad is it? If possible, I'd like to test changing your diet to a different animal before we test increasing the physical mass fed to you. I raise my eyebrows a bit, but nod. That sounds great, I hate mice. Sure, I say. I should be fine for another couple weeks at least, if that doesn't help. Assuming it doesn't keep getting worse, I guess. Lady Vesuvius nods, descending into an uncharacteristic silence after that. She's normally quite chattery, so it's making me a little worried. Forgive me if this is too personal, but is everything okay, Lady Vesuvius? She looks up, quickly hiding a bit of surprise at my question before giving me a soft smile. More or less, yes, she tells me. I'm just a bit melancholy. It's Have you ever spent a long, long time looking forward to something, only to realize once you get it that you're no longer the person that wanted it in the first place? And the new you no longer loves that thing, I continue understandingly. But it's too late after you've done it. Exactly, Lady Vesuvius agrees, sighing. May I ask what happened? I inquire curiously. It's rare that Lady Vesuvius opens up much about herself. Let's just say I'm no longer a girl that likes playing with toys, she murmurs. Nor anything that reminds me of them. Oof, I get that. I used to love toys, but now they just remind me of August. I nod understandingly, feeling a rare moment of kinship with this weird, aggressive woman. Though if you don't mind me changing the subject, I did have a non-medically related question for you, Lady Vesuvius says, injecting a seemingly artificial cheer into her voice. What is your opinion on tales? Huh? I sputter, feeling a bit of conversational whiplash. What do you mean? Tales, Lady Vesuvius repeats. I know you don't have one, but you're generally experienced at finding yourself with exciting new body parts, aren't you? What sort of things would you look for and dread in a tale? Well, I don't really want a tail, so if I started to grow one I'd hope it ends up as small and innocuous as possible, I answer simply. And why don't you want one, she presses. Well, it wouldn't help me, I explain. The key strengths of my body come from being light and fast. A tail would be extra weight for nothing. Balance? I don't have issues with it. Prehensile capabilities? I already have 4 arms, I don't need it. Lady Vesuvius ponders, tapping her chin. Well, I've been thinking of growing myself a tail, lately. I suppose I'm coming at it with the opposite intention, though. I want more mass, or specifically more volume. I need extra space for internal structures, and rather than expanding my height for relatively minimal gains, I figure I should take the next step of my evolution. But I'm trying to think about what pitfalls I should be mindful of before finalizing the concept. Well, she's back to being weird again, at least. Which is comforting somehow. I don't know Lady Vesuvius all that well, but I don't want her to be distressed. So big like a snake tail? I ask. Not in the sense of it replacing your legs, but in the sense that it retains your normal body width throughout most of its length rather than being significantly thinner than the rest of you like a cat or tapering like a lizard. Yes, that would be the best way to maximize volume, she nods. But I'm worried about it being too cumbersome. I certainly don't need to move as quickly as you do, but it would still be a problem, I agree. I have to lean a little further forward when I walk with my quills extended. A giant tail would kill your balance if you tried to lift it off the ground, and if you're not lifting it off the ground it means you're dragging a huge tail everywhere. You'd probably get really sore. Lady Vesuvius hums thoughtfully. Speaking of, how have your back and shoulders been doing? The stretches you suggested help, thank you, I nod. Vibrating my quills every day to get heat flowing through them has also been doing wonders. That's wonderful to hear, she responds, almost absent-mindedly. So you think the main problem would be dragging the tail everywhere? If it weighs too much, you won't be able to lift it without falling backwards, I shrug. Right? Yes, you're absolutely right, Lady Vesuvius agrees. Perhaps rather than enabling the tail to be lifted, it might be easier to design it with the intention of being dragged. Well, I wouldn't know anything about that, I answer, shrugging. Honestly, I've been working very hard trying to hold on to what little humanity I have. I don't have any idea why you'd want to get rid of it. Well, you're not very content with who and what you are, yes? Lady Vesuvius asks me. Does it not stand to reason, then, that some humans may feel the same way? I nod slowly. I guess that makes sense. It feels weird to me that any human would want to be a monstrous freak of nature, but it sounds silly to say so when I'm talking to a woman literally turning herself into one. It would be nice if people could just swap bodies, or something. I'd be happy to give up mine. Penelope lets out a full-bodied laugh. Ah, yes, she agrees. If only we knew someone who could do that. He said yes. Xavier squeals delightedly, half tackling me with a sudden hug from nowhere. My whole body goes stiff at the impact, my mind completely focused on halting all my natural responses to the unexpected contact. Don't bite, don't claw, don't fight, don't move. I'm absolutely terrified that one of these days, Xavier is going to surprise me and I'll kill him on accident. Or maybe on purpose, insofar as it's possible to separate things I know I shouldn't do from things I feel that burning need for. The instinct, Lady Vesuvius says, is still me. The fact that parts of me want something that the rest of me hates doesn't make those parts separate. People, she says, are inherently contradictory. Everyone struggles with urges and temptations and desires that they know are wrong. We're only noteworthy because of the sheer difference in scope our temptations cover, compared to that of others. We're only different because our failures hurt far more people than anyone else's. Who said yes to what? I ask carefully, peeling myself out of Xavier's grasp. Bentley, he cheers. We're dating. Officially. Well, not officially as in publicly, because officially I think it's against Templar policy to be in a relationship with someone in your own squad. He gives me a hesitant glance that roughly translates to "please confirm this for me / help me with coursework." It is, yes, I confirm. Although there's no official punishment listed in said policy, and there are multiple notable examples of the rule being violated without consequence. He gives me a mischievous look and I take a turn towards the women's side of the dorms. He follows me anyway. The two of us are inside the barracks, though I'm still fully armored up because we'll be leaving shortly to attend church. I just need to go grab Captain Jelisaveta. Huh, it sounds like you did extra research on that one, Xavier hums. Somehow I bet the examples of exceptions aren't part of the rules. You wouldn't have any sort of special interest in that particular bit of policy, would you? I do, actually, I admit. I've been trying to learn more about rules that aren't rules, the difference between the parts of policy that are and are not actually enforced. I still can't figure out why, though. I don't even know why half the rules exist in the first place. The "no relationships in the squad" one was particularly confusing, since first I had to figure out what that meant. It meant the kind of relationship where people have sex, and then I had to figure out why that was a problem. I'm pretty sure humans really like and celebrate relationships. I'm still figuring this one out. You do? Xavier gasps, absolutely lighting up. Really? Oh my god, don't tell me, I want to guess. It's Melik. The hateful glares are simply evidence of his smoldering passion. The perfect cover story for a pair of forbidden lovers, whose nighttime trysts are legend. Wait, aren't you like 2 years old? I should definitely not continue this line of thinking. I would really prefer you didn't, I agree, grimacing under my helmet. I promise you, Melik actually hates me. What does my age have to do with it, though? It's just he gestures vaguely. It's weird. I don't know, I say flatly. I literally don't have the slightest idea why you all think it's weird. I'm only aware that you do because I get all these shocked looks whenever anyone draws attention to it. You should all know this, you were alive when my egg was dropped into the forest. That's not okay, we should know that, but it's still shocking anyway because well, you look like an adult woman. A pretty darn attractive adult woman, frankly. Like wow, I wouldn't be surprised if jealousy is half of why Gina hates you. But attractiveness is a very adult-only thing. And you're not that age. At all. So it hits us like whiplash, and anybody who, thought of you that way, even a little, is now stuck rapidly trying to reverse those feelings. I scrunch my eyebrows together, trying to mentally wade through the muck of cultural implication I don't fully understand. Especially all the human attractiveness crap. I have enough trouble with body language and facial expressions. I haven't even started trying to figure out whether or not a person counts as attractive by human standards. As far as I can tell, they're all just human. But wait, we can back up here. The attractiveness bit doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's adult only, and that means. You think I'm a sub-person like human children? I ask, equal parts dumbfounded and offended. Xavier jerks with surprise. I've noticed he's always extra expressive, often putting his whole body into demonstrating emotions other humans would accomplish with just an eyebrow or two. Sorry. How about pre-person, then? No. Xavier insists. Children are people. Are they? I press. Humans are born literally incapable of complex thought. Babies are useless, gross, and terrifyingly fragile. And a human my age isn't really much better. Like, sure, most of them can walk and talk, but the difference between a 2-year-old human and a 20-year-old human isn't just a lack of experience. The 2-year-old is literally incapable of thinking on the same level, or in the same way. You treat children as lesser beings because of this. You have a whole word for talking to someone like they're a child, and it's an insulting thing to do to someone. Unless that person actually is a child, because children cannot understand why they should care. Xavier opens his mouth, then closes it and shakes his head. Okay, I mean, you're not wrong, he admits. But children are still included in the definition of person. They're just mentally undeveloped people. So is that what you think I am? I ask. Mentally undeveloped? An idiot? A child? I might not know everything you know, but I'm not a kid. I'm not human, Xavier. I didn't hatch as a mindless blob that needed constant care to avoid death. I don't take an unimaginably long time just to gain a couple inches of height, and I definitely don't have to hear or see something 20 times before I remember it. I was outgrowing childhood before I was a year old. Humans are just slow. I'm getting angry, I realize. I can feel my instincts clawing at the back of my mind, tempting me to demonstrate my rage with tooth and claw. I take a slow breath, deliberately forcing those feelings down. Thankfully, Xavier helps by raising his hands in a placating gesture. Language, I sigh. And I remember my life from before hatching, actually. My earliest memory is falling. The instinctive terror my body felt when I was dropped from Hive Rock woke me up, I guess. Which is good, because it means I hatched quickly enough to eat a little before the frenzy got going. What's the first thing you ate? Xavier asks, his eyes wide with that strange fascination that makes me wonder if he'd like me less if I was human rather than Vrothizo. Which is an uncomfortable feeling. My sister, I answer simply. When we landed, we were all just in a big pile of eggs, I guess. We all started eating each other the moment we hatched. I'm alive because I thought to run away rather than stay to eat, and because eating my siblings healed the wounds I got from the fall. Wow, Xavier breathes as I finally reach and knock on Captain Jelisavetta's door. Man, Vrothizo are so badass. I narrow my eyes at him, not that he can see behind my helmet. Why do you always seem so happy about that? I press. We're a serious problem, Xavier. I scowl, feeling myself start to get irritated. I hope Jelisaveta comes out of her room soon and gives me an excuse to leave. I hear her moving around inside, but she's not coming to the door. You don't have to live like this, Xavier, I remind him. I hate being a Vrothizo. It's freaking awful. He raises his hands placatingly again. Sorry, he answers. I'm not trying to trivialize your hardships or whatever. I didn't say it was fun and good for you, I said it was cool. I'm just biased that way, you know. I've wanted a shape-shifting talent since I was like 11. Not that the talent I ended up with isn't great, it's just well, not my first choice. At those words, the door to Captain Jelisavetta's room suddenly bursts open, the woman herself emerging with a blank expression. She doesn't look like she's in very good shape. She's been sleeping a lot since I met her, but if anything the bags under her eyes just seem to get deeper. Lark, she greets me with a gruff nod. Sorry to make you wait. To church? To church, I confirm, nodding back at her. Are you doing okay, Captain? Not really, but I'll live, she answers, rolling her shoulder. Thanks for asking. You know, I gotta say, you're way more casual than I was expecting our future captain to be, Xavier comments, the three of us departing beside each other. I'm a lot better at making friends than I am at giving orders, Captain Jelisaveta explains, yawning. I don't think that's going to change just because they gave me a fancier helmet. Besides, as long as you take it seriously when I do give an order, that's what matters. Cool. Xavier grins, saluting lazily. Well, I look forward to serving under you, ma'am. Jelisaveta mumbles. Just make sure you and your new boyfriend don't cause any problems, because then they become my problems. No teenage lover shit, no favoritism, no having sex in the dorm. I'll know. And if you break up, do it like adults. I'm weirdly offended by the fact that Xavier is, in that moment, far more terrified of the captain than he's ever been of me. Xavier stammers, blushing. Yes ma'am. Where is Bentley, anyway? I ask idly. Oh, he's going to his mom's church today, Xavier answers, shrugging awkwardly. It's like, halfway across the city. I nod. I also think I'm supposed to say congratulations, but I forgot. So congratulations. He brightens right back up at that. Thanks. The church we go to isn't in the barracks, it's a public structure. It is very close to the barracks, however, so it's just a few minutes of walking before we enter the huge building where people in this part of the city gather for sermons. There must be hundreds of humans in here, which I found much too intimidating to be a part of until pretty recently. But Bentley encouraged me to attend alongside him and Xavier a couple weeks ago, and I've been joining them here ever since. I stand out a bit, being the only person who shows up in full armor, but it's a lot less attention than I'd be getting from the alternative. I've heard this stone building is designed to hold over 1,000 worshippers at once, but even in that context it seems ridiculously big. The ceiling is a full 200 feet above our heads, with very little between here and there other than the giant glass windows that dominate the walls. Ever since seeing it, I can't help but wonder why. Humans definitely can't grow that tall. Is it supposed to accommodate flying guests? It can't have anything to do with the function of the church itself. Preacher Gregory's church was smaller than a barn and we had sermons in that without any problems. It's not actually required for Templars to attend church sermons, though since you have to get sponsored by a preacher to be one in the first place, nearly all Templars attend regularly. A large number of people from my barracks attend here, including all of my fellow trainees bar Melik. So after sitting down in one of the backmost pews and getting as comfortable as my armor allowed, I'm not terribly surprised to see Gina walking towards us. But I am very, very surprised to see Fulvia. My whole body freezes, shivering with wretched intensity. My loud one is back. My favorite meal. My body cannot vomit, but some part of the humanity I've acquired attempts a dry heave, the raw flood of emotion digging hooks into my mind, my throat, my stomach, and yanking it all at once. They brought her to me, my instincts sing, caring nothing for my pain. Look at her rejuvenated limbs. Soak in her stronger smell. I bet her flavor has healed just as well as the rest of her. And there's no flavor I know better than Fulvia's. Worse, my memories of her are entirely from when I was a child. From before I understood right and wrong, before I was capable of guilt or empathy. Looking back at the situation, I certainly regret it. But the memories themselves are completely untainted by negativity. They are, in many ways, happier times. Times when I could torture and murder and feel only joy in the act. And the reminder that I used to be a creature that horrible and that I can never experience that purity of happiness again both crush me from different directions, leaving me a screaming mess inside the silence of my own mind. Xavier sits on my left, Captain Jelisaveta on his other side. So it's Gina that takes the open seat to my right, Fulvia resting right next to her. There she is. My joy and regret, so tantalizingly, agonizingly close. My eyes start to water, and I do everything I can to focus on holding back the sobs. "Hey, Lark," Gina greets me coldly. "Hey, Gina," I whisper breathlessly, unable to look at either of them. Fulvia doesn't say anything, but her body is so tense, so afraid, so furious that there's no doubt in my mind she knows exactly who I am. I let my gaze wander in every direction but theirs, and end up locking eyes with Captain Jelisaveta. She stares intensely at me for just a moment, then gives me a small smile, nodding ever so slightly. I don't know what that means, but somehow it makes me feel just a little less hopeless. Just a little, though. The preacher starts speaking about the virtue of community, and while I'll likely think back and re-listen to the contents later, I simply can't focus on it at the moment. A full hour drags agonizingly by, full of prayer, songs, and speeches about the glorious Mist Watcher. When it finally ends and people start dragging their way out of the building, I stand up and eagerly follow Captain Jelisaveta off the pew. Gina catches the captain in a conversation, but I keep heading towards the door, hoping to at least not be in the same room as Fulvia anymore. Yet she does not, unfortunately, stop and wait with Gina. She heads right towards me, glowering with an unquenchable hatred. When she stops in front of me, out of all the horrible thoughts rushing through my head there's one that stands out at me, a feeling I haven't had in months. She's shorter than me, now. Nearly half a foot shorter. I've changed a lot, since we last saw each other. I shouldn't forget that. I thought she was just telling the world's worst joke, at first, Fulvia hisses softly. As much of a good friend she is, Gina's the type of stupid that might actually be that tactless, you know. She pauses for half a beat, as if she initially planned to wait for a response but thought better of it halfway through. "Actually, do you know?" she asks. "What are you now, you freak? I want to see your face." She says we almost look like sisters. My former victim sneers. Tactless. Truly tactless. I swallow, half out of nervousness and half to try and chase away the memories of her flesh in my mouth. "I'm not allowed to remove my helmet," I whisper. "Sorry." "Then we'll go somewhere private," she says simply. "Gina is distracting your handler. Follow me." I don't even think about telling her no. Both my guilt and my hunger want me to obey. Not that I intend to give in to the latter, but it certainly makes things easier when both parts of me agree. We slip out of the church, just two more faces in the crowd. "So," I say, following her down a twisting, jagged set of alleyways, "Gina told you everything?" "I don't know if I'll believe it until I see your face," Fulvia answers. "They'd already sent the team out to kill you when I woke up. The hunters reported a success, but here you are. You even feel different. My danger sense doesn't pick you up right." I blink, tilting my head with surprise. "It doesn't?" I ask. "What do you mean?" "You feel weaker than you should," Fulvia says simply. "I couldn't pick you out from any group of hunters, yet you're fast and strong enough to treat Gina like a baby." She pushes open a door, and the two of us enter a dark, partially dilapidated home. It's completely empty, and there's a large hole in the floor as if it had all caved in. "I'm surprised you want to be anywhere near me," I admit. What I did to you was beyond unforgivable. I'm sorry." "It means nothing, but I'm sorry." "Helmet," Fulvia orders, closing the door behind us. "Off." I don't know what she wants from me, and it doesn't really matter. I do as she says. I undo the helmet clasps and pull it off, giving my frizzy hair a shake and flicking my ears. She approaches, and I stay carefully still as she starts to slowly circle around me. I'm not really sure how to respond to that. Is there something you'd like from me? I ask hesitantly. Anything is fine. I glance down, seeing her hands vibrating with fury, balled into fists. Would you like to hit me? I offer. I twitch my ears, a bit confused by that. That's not why she can't kill me, though. The Templars aren't even here. She can't kill me because she's too weak. I've learned enough from my interactions with Gina that I shouldn't tell a human that, though. Fulvia is quiet for a while, her anger festering in silence. I'm not sure what to do. My memories and impulses still scream at me to taste her again, but they've returned to the usual dull background roar I contend with constantly. I wouldn't have come here if I wasn't confident that I could avoid hurting Fulvia. But is there some way I can help? I am a monster, I say simply, agreeing with her words. I deserve worse than death for what I've done to you. But death hasn't come for me. So as long as I'm alive, I want to do good things. Not to make up for it, but just because that's what I've been taught. I can spend my time doing nothing. Or I can spend it doing good. And so many people in my life have promised I can, so I will. Somehow. I swallow. I'm starting to believe it, I admit to her. I won't hurt you again. I don't care, Fulvia answers bluntly, and punches me in the face. I see the attack coming. I could dodge it, but I don't. I let her fist connect right on my cheekbone, forcing me to stagger back and nearly fall to the ground. Shit, that actually really hurt. I guess now that I think about it, she fought with a gigantic mace when I first met her. She probably has a strength-enhancing tail. A second punch knocks my thoughts short, my head ringing from the blow as I collapse to the ground. She jumps on my chest, straddling me as I'm hit again, 3 times, 4 times. I clamp my jaw as tightly as I can, not wanting to risk her fists grazing my teeth and giving me a taste of her blood again. Yet my own blood starts to flow, thick and black down my face. And with every blow, every injury, my hunger roars louder. But I won't hurt her. I refuse. She wants to beat me. Fine. Watch her nose, she deserves it. I feel her shaking from more than just the impacts, screaming with incoherent fury as tears stream down her face and salt my wounds. I hope this makes her feel better. I hope this helps. Please, watch her. Ease her suffering. Time seems to slow. Or perhaps speed up. Blow after blow hammers down on my face, cracking bone and drawing blood. Maybe too much blood. I feel myself getting woozy. Hungry. It's bad. This is bad. Stop, I say, moving up an arm to block her strike. She bats it aside, continuing her attack. Stop. I repeat more firmly, trying to grab her arms. But blood is stinging my eyes, I'm dizzy, and I need to bite her. No. No. I won't. I can't. I flail at her, trying to restrain her or knock her off, but my head is ringing and my senses are all messed up. There's such an easy way to fix that, too, if I just open my mouth and take it. I stretch my jaw out wide. Fulvia, I don't want to fight back. I yell at her. If I'm hurt too much, I'll lose control. Fulvia. You think I'm afraid of you, she raves. You really think, after every pound of flesh you've taken from me, I won't lose another arm to make sure you die for good? Do it, you monster. Do it. I have to grab her, hold her, stop her, but it's too hard. I can't web her up with my gauntlets on. She breaks free if I grab her. I can't block her attacks without being able to see. But I can kill her. That would be easy. She's straddling me. One punch and I could probably cave her skull in. Or, even better, I simply lean into the next fist and bite it off. Ah, what an exquisite experience that would be. I've eaten her upper arm dozens of times, but her hand? I only ever tasted that once. I should. Oh. I recognize that voice. Captain Jelisaveta, an easy meal. It was so stupid of them to have her watch me. I'll just have her after I know. I'm better than this. I will not give in to my hunger here. Not after so long. I've been doing so well. Over a year of living with humans and not hurting them. Over half my life. That means something. I'm better than this. Yet August was better than her, my hunger reminds me. And I still ate him. I was so angry at the time, so furious at someone so innocent. And the situation is reversed here, I'm not being rescued, I'm being attacked. I'm not better than this, not really. And even if I was, the loud one should know better. Out of the corner of my eye I see Captain Jelisaveta rush forward, but I've already lost my battle. Regret welling up before the action even completes, I open my jaws. Biting down on flesh, the red blood mixes with black. Follow me and catch the first alley cat you see, I snap at Gina, interrupting whatever it is she's been saying. Bring it with us. That's an order. Whwa. Gina blinks, dumbfounded. I focus on cycling power through my legs, per my enhancer training, as Gina sputters slightly before running after me. We're not that far out, I've made sure of it. It'll take me 30 seconds to reach Fulvia and Lark, tops. But 30 seconds is a long time to have your face beaten in, and every couple steps a sickening crack in my ears reminds me of that fact. Stop, I hear Lark plead. Stop. Her attacker doesn't. Rage starts to drown out my guilt, pushing me a little faster. Fulvia, I don't want to fight back, she yells. If I'm hurt too much, I'll lose control. I told them I wasn't cut out for leadership. No time for self-pity, though. I have to fix as much as I can. I make it to the abandoned home they're hiding inside, one of the many that still hasn't gotten fixed from the perception event 2 years ago. I boot down the door, shouting at them to stop, but of course they don't. The stench of Rothizo blood and human fury mixes like acid in my nostrils, and I'm instantly reminded of the last time I fought of Rothizo, the way my senses seized control of my brain at exactly the wrong moment and nearly got me killed. Sure enough, Lark has a wild, feral look in her eyes, and I fear the worst. To most people, her blood would probably be difficult to distinguish from her skin beyond the slightly glossier color, but my eyes easily make out the difference, and that's a lot of blood. On top of her head injuries, there's no way Lark is in a lucid state of mind. So it's horrible, but not terribly surprising, when she bites off Fulvia's hand just before I can reach the two of them. What's surprising is that Fulvia just rears up for another punch with that arm, the sheer teary-eyed fury on her face making it clear she's completely lost her senses. Not even the pain can snap her out of whatever she's going through right now. Or perhaps it's the pain that put her there. Doesn't matter. I'm there, and using all the momentum from my run and all the enhanced strength I can muster, I grab her under the armpits and throw her as far off of Lark as I can, sending her careening to the other side of the room. Unfortunately, Lark doesn't seem quite done, and I'm suddenly the closest meal option. Maybe I shouldn't call her Lark. The frenzied, bloodied beast twisting to lunge at me is not the polite, heartbreakingly depressed young girl I've been tasked to watch over. This is just a frightened, hungry animal, fighting for its life. In the instant before she tries to devour me alive, however, I find myself staring intently at her face. From the moment I first saw her, I found myself liking Lark's face. Human skin is disgusting for countless reasons, but the foremost problem is sweat glands. I absolutely despise sweat glands, the little holes that cough and vomit up foul-smelling fluid all over a person's body. Lark has a few sweat glands dotted here and there, but best I can tell they seem to be disappearing, sealing up and removing themselves from her body. Her face has none left, though, meaning all the water on it is clearly from her tears. She swallows most of Fulvia's hand, lips curling up in a red-stained grin before turning on me. Though while her mouth is smiling, her eyes are wet with terror. I watch, in those slow moments where my life is in danger and my senses snap to even more horribly precise extremes, as her tear ducts pour yet more fluid out as her injuries rapidly stitch themselves together. She's not crying from the pain. She's still in there. Cool, I guess I might survive this. Before my talent manifested, my family had a dog. His name was Boxers and he was the best. We used to play fight all the time, which would often involve him getting a little chompy. Never enough to really hurt me, since Boxers and I were best friends, but we'd pretty seriously get into it, wrestling in the dirt and absolutely going at each other. The brilliant idea my dumb little brain came up with here is similar to something I used to do in order to win fights with Boxers: push my arm into his mouth on purpose and wedge it deep enough in there to prevent him from biting down. That move always ended in victory for me. Boxers would start gagging and give up immediately whenever I pulled it off. I don't know if Rothizo can gag, but still, have you ever stuffed so much in your mouth at once that you physically can't chew anymore? Biting down just becomes impossible because there's too much in the way. Yeah, that's the strategy here. Now if this sounds like a stupid idea in general and doubly so against a Rothizo, well, that's because it absolutely is. For one, I'm not play fighting with Lark, she's seriously trying to kill me. For two, her teeth are magically ultra sharp. Just by grazing them on the entry, my arm is absolutely torn open, large gashes opening up on both sides of it. That's mostly okay, though, because I fully expect to lose it. Immediately, though, I run into a few problems. First, Lark apparently doesn't have a gag reflex. Even with her throat and windpipe blocked, she doesn't seem to give a single shit. Second, since her teeth can slide through bone like it's a gelatin dessert, she doesn't really have to worry about being unable to chew all that much. With enough struggling, she's going to shear my arm off anyway, as her teeth won't get stuck in my flesh if she jerks her head around. Third, once I stick my whole arm as deeply into her throat as I'm able, I feel my fingers disintegrate. Still, I press down on her lower jaw as much as I'm physically capable, desperately trying to keep her mouth open and my arm intact long enough to get a sentence or two out. Fight it, Lark. I shout at her, forcing myself to form words instead of agonized screams. You don't have to do this. And I believe her. I've known too many sociopaths and liars to think that she's either. That fact is little consolation to the screaming agony that is my arm, though. Pain, so much pain. And pain is a problem. My talent drastically increases the precision at which I can discern things my senses pick up, as well as drastically increasing the range of things my senses can pick up in the first place. It doesn't really make any individual sensation more intense. The intensity comes from the fact that I'm just constantly picking up so damn much all the time. I feel heat and cold much more precisely than I used to, for example, and can pick up even the slightest fluctuations in temperature, but I'm still comfortable in the same temperature ranges as before. Likewise, pain isn't any more painful than it was before my talent manifested. It's just a lot more precise. With horrid exactness, I feel every individual fracture in every individual wound. Each frayed tear of skin, each pulse of blood flowing outward, every movement of broken bone against bone. The knowledge of these sensations fills my mind to the brim, already stacked up alongside tracking Gina's footsteps, monitoring Fulvia's heartbeat and breathing, analyzing every minute scent in the air and twitch of Lark's body, and every one of the thousands and thousands of competing signals from the cacophony of the city, all crowding for my attention even as I face what may be my death. I feel them start to reach a tipping point, but if they spill into my mind now, if I have an episode now, it will be far, far worse than the last Rothizo I lost my mind to. I'm keeping her jaw open as best I can, but she's thrashing around, sawing her teeth through me. It won't be long before I lose enough of a muscle or tendon for this to all be over. Come on, Lark. I beg her. Come on, you brave girl. Come back to me. In response, she grabs my face, jerks her head, and tears my arm clean off. I feel the strain on every tendon and muscle fiber, the near-synchronous snapping of every bit of flesh unlucky enough to not be cleanly severed by a tooth, the ripping of skin, and the chalky crunch of what bits of bone still held together, vibrations running up my shoulder and down my ribcage. The Vrothizo bucks, and if not for the fact that she's still holding on to me I would have been flung clean off. It certainly knocks my knee off of her throat, though, and she swallows most of the rest of my arm in one gulp. Taking in a huge breath for the first time since I stuck it down there in the first place, the monster lets out a horrid wail, half bestial fury and half human despair. Shit, time to sacrifice another limb, I guess. I need my other arm, though. Curling my toes up as much as I can, I stick the tip of my boot in her mouth and let her bite off, her teeth barely missing my foot. Stop talking to it like it's a person. Fulvia demands suddenly. Kill it. No, she shrieks, and the sound is so horrified and raw that I instinctively glance her way. Fulvia is panicking. Beyond panicking, really. Her mental state is as animalistic as the monster trying to kill me. No healing, she insists. Not until it's dead. I glance at her mangled, bloody hand, finishing up my own one-handed healing spell. Pushing down the distracting influx of sensations as my shoulder starts to knit itself back together, I glance at her mangled stump of a hand. Yep, she's definitely bleeding too much. Well, if you stick around here I'll heal you myself. I snap. Immediately, she and Lark both freeze. Holy shit, thank the Watcher, Lark stops moving. I keep my body tense, but her grip goes limp and her hand leaves my face. With another swallow, all the human flesh she's consumed finally finishes its journey to whatever passes for her stomach. A warring combination of avarice and blank horror spread across her face, slight twitches in her expression filling me with hope. Hey! I say excitedly. Hey, 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 hey. It's okay, Lark. You're okay, you got this. I'm okay, Lark, I whisper reassuringly, idly finding my free hand scratching behind her ears like I used to do with boxers. Which wow, I must be really out of it. I haven't willingly pet an animal since my talent manifested. Not that Lark is an animal, I just the point is, it's no fun at all to be able to feel every individual hair, every mite and flea, every bit of dirt and gunk the animal hasn't cleaned out. At least I have a glove on, now. I feel like I should be using my hand for something else, though oh, shit. I have to heal. Hey, I got the cat or what Watcher's tits. Restrain Fulvia. I order her, and to her credit she actually does that. Without even dropping the hungry-looking scraggly alley cat she has in one hand. That's cool. Very cool. Also, I'm getting her ass kicked out of the trainee program for this shit. It's not super difficult for Gina to get Fulvia under control, though she does wail and curse when she's forced over to me so I can make sure she doesn't bleed to death. You're welcome, I guess. I get it, she just had an intensely traumatic episode after being reunited with her abuser. I have sympathy for that. But she lost control after confronting that abuser on purpose, going out of her way to be alone with them, and that confers on her some responsibility for going absolutely apeshit. She was clearly not ready for this. Whatever. I've done what I can for her. I just have one more responsibility here. Regretfully picking myself up off the cold stone, I scoot over to Lark. The poor girl is still sobbing in a ball, though I can hear her running her tongue over her teeth as if trying to clean them. Well, trainee, I drawl tiredly, you were wrong. I totally stopped you. You need anything else to eat, Lark? I ask her plainly. She shakes her head no with a rapidness that borders on desperation. Okay, that's fine, I tell her. But I want to double check here, because I know you've said that getting fed enough helps you stay in control, and I think right now you might not be thinking completely straight about whether you should be eating more. So if you can, really give yourself a proper once-over, okay? She draws in a few deep, shaky breaths, giving me an answer about 10 seconds later. I should eat, she admits quietly. I nod, handing the cat over to her. She sits up and takes it gingerly in her hands, staring at it with utter self-loathing for a moment before bringing it up to her mouth. With startling precision, she bites off all 4 of its legs and its tail in rapid succession. She then swallows, shoves as much of the head and shoulders into her mouth as she can, and bites that off as well, placing what's left of the now dead torso on the ground next to her. The whole thing takes maybe 2-3 seconds. I watch as bits of anima fall down her throat alongside the flesh, noting how small they are even compared to the already tiny cat soul. That's relieving, and a quick glance at my own soul confirms it has taken very little damage. Thank the Watcher. Curling her knees up and resting her face against them, Lark continues sobbing. I leave her alone, my brain moving far too sluggishly from the adrenaline drop and blood loss to come up with the right words to say. Instead, my gaze meets Fulvia, who is no longer frantically raving and screaming. Instead she just glares at Lark and I with open hatred. I glance over at Lark again briefly before meeting Fulvia's gaze again, checking the part of her very few others can see. I see her soul, a sphere like a cracked blanket, smelling of fresh wood, somehow soft yet brittle. It looks, inarguably, like a human soul. Nothing like the non-humans at Site 4, or how I've been told of Rothizo's soul appears. Maybe so, I admit. I'm no mind reader. But the thing is, maybe she's not. Maybe she's just a scared girl fighting with every ounce of her strength to not be the monster that hurt you. Maybe the things she did when she was just a few months old aren't who she is now. You don't know anything, Fulvia insists. You weren't there. You didn't get tortured over and over, day after day, body and soul violated over and over until I no longer knew who I was. There is nothing that can do that to a person and not be a monster to the core. Well, I think cores can change, I answer. Which kind of sucks, because it would be so much simpler if they couldn't. It's much more convenient, much more black and white to lay people out as good or evil, humane or monstrous, and guiltlessly punish the wicked. But that is not what the Watcher teaches us. People can change. People deserve an opportunity to return to the community, better than they were before their crimes. Punishment without rehabilitation is nothing but cruelty. But most people don't change, Fulvia growls. You really think a monster is going to? I shrug, startling myself at the lack of weight hanging from my shoulder. Most people don't have the right kind of help, I counter. But somewhere in her life, I think Lark did. Stop defending me, Lark whispers. I carefully don't react to that, but inside words twist my intestines into knots. No, I tell her, pouring into the word every ounce of conviction I can muster. She looks up, wet eyes wide with confusion. I bit off your arm, she reminds me. You did indeed do that, I admit, nodding. If only we knew, say, the most powerful biomancer in the country. Any idea how we could get an appointment with her? She stares at me in utter uncomprehension, ears flat against the top of her head. How are you so calm? Lots of experience, I say instead. Believe it or not, I've been on more harrowing assignments than taking care of a kind young girl who offers to let people beat the shit out of her in hopes of making them feel better. You don't know anything, she whispers. I'm not kind. I wanted to. Okay, well, she doesn't agree, I drawl tiredly. Which is fair. You probably don't deserve forgiveness on that one, but you don't really need it either. I think. Shakily, I try to stand up. Whoa, nope, way too lightheaded for that. I sit back down. Lark, put your helmet back on. Gina, go get more Templars. And a medical professional. Or 2. I dunno. I think I'm going to pass out soon. Good night, everybody. I lie down then, because may as well get comfy, right? Floor comfy. Wow, I'm out of it. Don't start another fight while I'm out, okay? I yawn, hearing the words come out of my mouth slurred and slow. Only got one more arm. I'm not sure exactly when I fall asleep, but I'm not enough of a coherent person to worry about it when I wake up. Filter, sterile smells, numb body, multiple synchronized heartbeats, 0 outside sounds. I come back to myself far faster than usual, as wherever I am just doesn't seem to have much for my senses to latch onto with, of course, the exception of First Lady Penelope Vesuvius. Did she set up silencing spells around where I'm resting to help me wake up? I open my eyes, and sure enough she's there, waiting for me to do just that. She smiles like a viper, though I instinctively give a soft smile right back. Sup, I grunt. She chuckles, grinning wider and showing off her pointed teeth. Hello to you too, Inquisitor Captain, Penelope answers. How are you feeling? Good question. How am I feeling? Mostly numb, so. Pretty great, all things considered. I decide. I wish I could wake up inside whatever sensory deprivation thing this is every morning. How's the kid? Lark? Penelope asks, tilting her head. She's perfectly fine. Physically, anyway. She's obviously distraught, but entirely returned to her senses. Now, let's see if we can say the same about you, A slew of standard medical tests follow that up, and Penelope eventually concludes that yes, except for my arm, I'm healthy enough to function. After slurping down a bunch of largely tasteless nutrient goop, I'm pretty sure she made it tasteless specially for me, which is very nice of her. I'm feeling a lot better in general. Right, so, down to business, Penelope says, and I focus on her immediately. In your honest opinion, what would happen if Lark and Vita fought? I blink in surprise. It's an odd but simple enough question, I suppose. Lark would probably get her ass kicked. Even if she could kill that ridiculously tough girl, Vita's a lich, so she could just steal a nearby wait. Lark's bite deals a frighteningly large amount of soul damage. I'm certain of that. I think. I quickly flick through the soul sight spell under the covers of the cot with my one remaining hand, checking my own soul. Oh yeah, wow. I'm surprised I can function with that big chunk bitten out of it. If Lark had gotten more than one limb, I probably couldn't have woken up. I think it could be legitimately dangerous for Vita, I admit. Lark's bites are scary, anima-wise. It'd be dangerous for Lark too, though. Vita is terrifyingly strong. I see, Penelope muses, her lips pursed as she watches me carefully. Well, that's somewhat good news, I suppose. Lark is being groomed as our anti-lich weapon, so your superiors will be happy to know that their operation has a good shot at success as long as Lark gets proper support. I raise my eyebrows with surprise. You know about liches, Lady Vesuvius? I ask. Something about the question feels odd to me, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Of course, she answers easily. I'm a first lady. We were all briefed about the situation with Vita and ours recently. Dreadful stuff. It's increasingly fortunate we have Lark, isn't it? I suppose so, I hedge. As far as I'm concerned, we should probably just leave Vita alone, but I doubt that's a welcome opinion to go spreading around more than I already have. I just hope everyone ends up okay. Ah. I should go give my debriefing, probably. Oh, no you don't, Lady Vesuvius chides. You should rest in bed. 3 days bed rest, no less. You're still healing. It's not like I need 2 arms to report to my superiors, I point out. But don't think I didn't notice your fingers moving under there, Inquisitor. Be honest, how much of your soul is missing right now? I wince. a quarter of it? A fifth? Bed rest, Lady Vesuvius orders. I'm no animancer, but it doesn't take one to know that's not healthy. I'll pass along anything urgent to Templar Command, if you have it. I'll give you my clearance papers if you need to see them. Yes ma'am, I sigh. I'll make sure Lark is taken care of in the meantime, she promises. You did well today, Captain. I don't feel like I did, I admit. I'm responsible for getting Lark into the situation where she was forced to lose control. And you got her back out of it with only minor casualties, Penelope insists. And that is what your superiors are going to see. You just proved Lark isn't a disaster waiting to happen. That she isn't one dropped pin away from a massacre. Even better, you did it while containing the information breach at the cost of your own safety. That's the angle I'll be pushing to those above you, and you've earned the praise you'll get for it. None of that makes me feel better. I sigh, suddenly exhausted once again. Honestly, I almost wish they'd just fire me at this point, I admit. Ah, we can't have that I'm afraid, Penelope answers soothingly. You're simply much too useful. I hum a slow song to myself as I move through the upper floor of my home, touching up every last speck of dust. I'm always trying to keep busy, but unfortunately there's just not much cleaning to do when the house is empty. Theodora, Margaret, and precious Vitamin all left to live in the forest with their true love, and I hardly blame them for it. I'm jealous, actually. But all three of them are exceptionally messy, not to mention exceptionally good friends, leaving my days full of things to do and people to do them with when they were here. I'm not used to how lonely the house is without the others. Thankfully, I don't have to wallow in the emptiness for long as a chime sounds throughout the house, alerting me that my lady will be home in approximately 15 minutes. Yay! I burst into action, rushing down to the kitchen to start a meal and a pot of tea, noting every imperfection in the house along my path and logging it in my memory to clean up later. With the food and drink started, I quickly take a detour to charge and repair the heating rune for the bath, the impromptu melody of my private performance accelerating into a more and more jubilant tune the closer I know my lady is to arriving. I felt such pride when Theodora declared me a skilled enough metamancer to handle the house's rune system on my own. Being a mage is a far greater accomplishment than anything he could attest to. The other reason I do it is because she wants me to stop. I quite love seeing her flustered. It's a sinful delight. Anyway, I need to choose an outfit for her arrival, and I find that's best done with the assistance of a mirror. A temporary mirror, obviously. Metal mirrors are expensive and wasteful, especially since I can maintain a person-sized kinemancy mirror using runes on my own. Runes are lovely things, capable of holding and running spells all on their own. Metal is largely useless until it's carved into the shape of a rune, at which point it constantly performs whatever spell it is sculpted to be. Metamancy runes are nearly identical to this, except that unlike metal they both run out of power and degrade. Metal is inherently sturdy and automatically draws in mana by its very nature, but metamancy runes have neither of these advantages. They must have extra mana included as part of their construction which they then burn to perform their effect, and they tend to degrade in just a few days without upkeep from a trained metamancer. So, in essence, while metal can be used by anyone, a metamancer is required to make use of runes. By that reasoning, being maximally seductive would involve fewer comically revealing outfits and more Vita-ness. My lady has confessed to me in private that part of what makes my creation such a mistake is that Vita's appearance never truly mattered. It was the feeling of being so known and yet still accepted, the vulnerability of having her mask removed and not coming to harm, that ultimately made her fall in love. So I think I could certainly trigger an instinctive arousal if I mussed up my hair and started looking at everything with a completely blank expression, but ultimately I don't want her to love me as a sexual surrogate for her girlfriend. I want her to love me as Nugas. I want her to know that being the result of her worst tendencies doesn't mean I'm incapable of accepting her despite them. I'm not just a thing. I'm real. I'm so distracted with these thoughts that I run out of time to actually decide on an outfit, so I settle on some string monstrosity that has so little fabric a nudist would consider it risqué. It's not a very exciting choice, but it's a classic. I then head downstairs and finish all the preparations necessary to get everything cooking just before my lady arrives, then go to wait for her just outside our teleportation arrival chamber. I keep the oven mitts on, because the contrast between the heavy, heat-protective fabric and the rest of what I'm wearing highlights the latter, and more importantly, it amuses me greatly. Then, with a rush of energy, she's there. My very literal reason for existing. First Lady Vesuvius. Over the time I've known her, she's gradually become taller and more heavy-set, a purposeful decision both to accentuate her voluptuousness and give her more space with which to add customized organs into her body. As usual, her outfit is a fashionable mutation of militaristic dress style, light armor fitted over her body in ways that sacrifice slight amounts of practicality here and there but still provide ample protection. Lady Vesuvius is a noble of action, after all, and her outfit is carefully crafted to support that image. Her golden eyes flick towards me immediately, their jagged, vertical pupils shrinking slightly to accommodate the change in lighting. Welcome home, Lady Vesuvius, I greet her warmly, unable and unwilling to hide the smile on my face. Nugas, she nods tiredly, stepping towards and then past me. Her pace implies urgency. Her expression is distracted. She's caught up in thinking about a problem, so there's only 2 places she's likely to go and she's headed the wrong way for the bath. Shall I take your tea to the study, my lady? I ask. Yes, please, Penelope confirms. Thank you, Nugas. I beam, her words sending a rush of joy out from my heart and through the tip of every limb. It is my pleasure, Lady Vesuvius, I assure her. And it truly, truly is. I already feel my mood improving drastically as a result of Lady Vesuvius' presence. When I was first created, when I stopped being a man rejecting my name and became Nugas in truth, everything reversed. I no longer spent the days in my cell in agony, fearing the moment my lady would arrive. Instead I spent them in anticipation, yearning for the burst of joy that fills my body on the sight of her. The effect has dampened over time, but that just makes it feel more natural. More me. I regretfully break off from her path, heading to the kitchen to retrieve the tea and a few light snacks to tide her over until the meal is ready. Then I'm off to her study, where I find her rapidly scribbling out plans and contingencies over multiple pieces of paper that span nearly her entire desk. My lady's study is always exceptionally tidy. Lady Vesuvius herself is by far the least messy member of the household, after myself, but this is partially due to the general barrenness of the area. Certainly, she has bookshelves full of reference material, and her desk is outfitted with a wide variety of different writing materials, runes to adjust the heat of the room, and a dozen other practicalities and comforts. The only truly personal object, the one thing that serves no purpose other than aesthetic, is a preserved human eye. Its sclera is white like a normal human's, but its iris is the same brilliant blue as my own. Your tea, my lady, I announce, placing it down on the small table next to the desk designated for food. Thank you, Nugas, she answers without looking up. I flush with joy again, though this time it's tempered with a bit of worry. Are you all right, Lady Vesuvius? I ask. You're being unusually polite today. Yes, Nugas, everything's, she starts automatically, then trails off, blinking with confusion once before looking up at me. Does me saying thank you make you assume something is wrong? She asks incredulously. Yes, my lady, I nod. You're always more polite when feeling particularly contrite. Have you done something you regret? She stares at me for a moment, then lets a huff of air out of her nose. Today? She asks dryly. I suppose that's yet to be determined. Lark and Jelisaveta ended up in my office today, the latter missing an arm and a chunk of soul thanks to the former. Which left me needing to make a snap decision about the decontamination protection plan. Ah. I frowned slightly, nodding with understanding. So you modified her memory with animancy, I conclude. I did indeed, Penelope sighs. How could I not? It was the perfect opportunity. She can't reveal my crimes under decontamination if she doesn't know about my crimes anymore. But removing memories would leave obvious, easily noticeable chunks of her soul missing. Unless, of course, it's expected for her to be missing parts of her soul due to a Vorthizo attack, I finish for her as she trails off. Yes, that makes perfect sense. But when you tried to remove my memories, I simply got them back when my soul healed because they're still contained within my brain. What changed? Former Inquisitor Captain Manus, Lady Vesuvius explains. He showed me how to make it permanent. Permanent memory alteration leaves a permanent mark on the soul, however, because it doesn't remove the memories from the brain, it merely blocks the person from thinking about them. But Jelisaveta already has a memory-blocking mark on her soul, and the Inquisition already knows about it. I co-opted that one easily enough. Clever, my lady, I beam. Now that you're able, you wouldn't be planning to remove any of my memories, would you? She stares at me for a moment like I've grown a second head. No, she promises with the weight of finality. Never. Oh. That's unfortunate. I struggle to hide my disappointment as I change the subject. Well, as convenient as it is, this still seems like a situation where a lot could go wrong, I say. It relies a bit too much on the incompetency of your enemies. And enemies are always at their most competent when you're relying on them to not be, yes, Lady Vesuvius grumbles. I know. Which is why I'm here, working out possibilities and contingencies. I didn't have a lot of time to make the decision, but an imperfect solution to the likelihood of decontamination during what is basically the second Ars crisis is better than no solution. I nod agreeably, waiting to see if she'll continue without prompting. She doesn't, though, burying her nose back in her work. Normally, that would be my cue to leave, but at this point I have to admit to myself that she won't open up to me if I'm just polite and patient. I have to be the one pushing forward. So what part of that makes you regretful, Lady Vesuvius? I ask. She looks up again, clearly a bit surprised. Good. See me as more than your expectations, my lady. Please. She doesn't respond at first, going back to her work, but her expression remains changed. She's thinking about it. So I wait. Eventually, she does speak. My goals are good, she says softly. I don't just believe that, I know that. I want to allow people to live as long as they want, in whatever body they choose, free from sickness and age. I want this country to be a beacon of progress, free from the incompetent, greedy hands that drag it downwards. My goals are good. But I'm not. She stops writing again, looking up at me. I will hurt as many people as I have to in order to make these dreams a reality. And for anyone else that would require an intense conviction, a zealotry, but I don't have that. I'm just incapable of feeling empathy for my victims in a normal way. So what if the real reason I'm doing this isn't because it's good at all? What if it's just a larger scale version of you? I sit down in the chair across from her desk, crossing my legs and puffing out my chest a little. Not for any real reason, it's just a habit I've developed for getting her attention. Well, my lady, I'd certainly prefer you not transform vast swaths of Valka into biological copies of your girlfriend, if that's what you mean. I know that's not what she means. She gives me an annoyed look, to which I respond with a bright smile. I mean in the sense that I'm doing it to feel productive and beneficial for society, when in actuality it's just an excuse for me to indulge my worst impulses. I don't know how to tell the difference anymore. Or I suppose I never did, I just thought I did. Which means I probably shouldn't be in charge of any of this. But at the same time, I still believe it needs doing and I don't trust anyone else to do it. I nod slowly. Is this about Penta? I ask. She flinches. Watcher's eyes, you're feeling blunt today. Yes, it's about Penta. It's about everything else too, but yes. That shook me. I was looking forward to torturing her for so long. That's what made me willing to see her revived again in the first place. But it was fun, but ugh. She shakes her head. I don't know why I'm telling any of this to you, she sighs. You'll just agree with me whenever you think I want you to and disagree whenever you think I don't. I hold back my urge to flinch, but the words cut deep. How could she have made me herself and yet still not understand? I'm not like that. Perhaps I was, once. But I've grown. Lady Vesuvius, you think too little of yourself, I chide. You made me loyal, certainly. But you did not make me stupid. I love you. I exist for you. And I will gladly say things you don't want to hear if doing so would serve you best. She gives me a calculating stare, the kind that peels me apart and makes my heart try to burst from my chest. You can do that, can't you? She eventually concludes. You've been doing it. Why didn't I notice? You don't enjoy paying me much mind, Lady Vesuvius, I say. You prefer to reap the benefits of my presence without acknowledging me. Which, well, I don't always mind. There's a simple satisfaction of bringing joy to my lady without even being noticed. Making sure that everything is in its proper place, improving her life with so many small details she never notices them all. I just love her so much. How could I not take pride in that? But I'm greedy. I want more. So I have to change. I have to be the type of person she wants, and that's not just a sycophant. A bit of independence is required to serve her better. I know this. I've seen it. I always pay very, very close attention to what my lady does. She sighs, glowering half-heartedly. Well then, she grumbles, are there any other insights into my character you'd like to share at this juncture? Altering Jelisavetta's memories prevents a major problem in the short term, I conclude. But in the long term, the Inquisition is very likely to discover it. It is, as you said, the second Ars crisis. Bans on certain animancy research topics are likely to be lifted, and Jelissa will want to get her memories back, no matter how traumatic. I agree, Lady Vesuvius sighs. It's a solution that will likely only last a few months. At minimum, foul play will be suspected whenever it's discovered that Lark's bites can't deal enough soul damage to create the symptoms Jelisaveta will show. So to that end, well, there is a single step forward that solves nearly all of my major problems at once, including this one. It's just, well, frighteningly desirable. And what's that? She licks her lips idly, then looks me in the eye, failing to suppress a small smile. Well, frankly, I can't help but think it's past time that I kill. Before I can respond, a chime sounds out through the home, indicating that someone else has appeared in the teleportation arrival chamber. Well, would you look at that, they're here, Lady Vesuvius mumbles. Not sure if this is great timing or terrible. I stand up and immediately move to receive the guests, glancing back at Lady Vesuvius long enough for her to tell me where to lead them. Dining room, she tells me. Let's get them fed and happy. I nod, hurriedly, but not ignobly, heading back to the arrival chamber to meet two people I privately wish would just break up. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem very likely. Hello, Sky, I say with perfect professionalism. Hello, Capita, I continue with much more genuine warmth. The pair of them, which in some ways is a trio, but still only contains two people, knew to wait politely for me, so I'm pleased to find them still in the middle of the chamber. Sky hovers with a bored expression on his face, though his eyes flick around my body as if trying to remove what little clothing I'm actually wearing. For his part, he wears his usual satire of noble clothes, an expensive, likely stolen suit with its buttons mostly undone, its collar ruffled, its cuffs unfolded. It's a wretched, purposefully offensive mess. Capita, for her part, dresses much more nicely, in that she's actually wearing a pair of identical yellow warm-weather dresses, which is unusual for her. The dresses, anyway, not the fact that they're identical. Capita always dresses both of her bodies with exactly the same outfit, and will frequently fiddle with her clothing to ensure that both sets are ruffled, wrinkled, tucked or untucked in exactly the same places. I once saw her spill tea on herself by accident, then immediately her other body spilled tea in precisely the same place, on purpose, and she was still distraught that the stains weren't the same. Nugas. Capita beams, rushing forward to hug me with both of her bodies. How is my favorite honorary sister? I'm doing quite well, Capita, I answer, returning the hug with one of her in each arm. It has been a bit lonely without my revenant friends, though I still talk with them regularly. And Margaret has nearly perfected the teleportation circle, so I will be able to visit soon. Ah! That is wonderful. Capita beams, squeezing me tightly. I was worried you'd be stuck here with me gone. Gone? I ask, tilting my head. Where are you going? That's what we're here to talk with Penelope about, Sky grunts. So if you could just take us to her. I don't glower at the rude floating man, because Capita likes him and my former self did not, which are both excellent pieces of evidence that he can't be all bad. I cannot for the life of me understand what his redeeming qualities might be, but that is an issue for later. He is, either way, expected by my lady, so I lead him to the dining room without complaint, ignoring his leers. Capita and Sky are here to see you, my lady, I announce, as if she didn't already know that. But her mask is on, now, so there are routines to follow. Ah, welcome. Lady Vesuvius beams, sitting at the head of the table. It's been too long, both of you. Would you like something to eat? To drink? We're just here to tell you that we're leaving Valka, Sky dismisses. Today. Lady Vesuvius looks shocked, and I for one can't tell if it's fake or not. I certainly am. Well. If this is to be our final meeting, I have to insist on sending you off properly, Lady Vesuvius stutters. Nugas, would you kindly prepare some Lashora tea? Of course, Lady Vesuvius, I agree, bowing slightly. I also have a duck nearly ready to come out of the oven, if you are interested. Please, would you, my lady coos? You're a doll, Nugas. I give the tiniest, context-appropriate chuckle, and immediately head off to do as I'm told. Which, in this case, means activate the anti-teleportation runes. Lashora tea is the code phrase for that, though I'll also actually make some, because why not? Sky may not be able to tell the difference between Lashora and slow-brewed anus, but the tea I made earlier isn't fresh anymore, so I'm not serving it. I still can't believe that thing used to be Dominic, Sky mutters after I'm outside the room, and my whole body freezes. Recognition. Revulsion. Hatred. Fury. That's not my name. That's his name, and he is dead. I'm Nugas. Nugas. He hated my name when Lady Vesuvius gave it to him. It was part of his torture, after all. Nugas is a word, not a name in any traditional sense. It means toys. Playthings. It's a name chosen to dehumanize, to draw out fires of indignance so they could be stomped into despair. Nugas, she would call out to him, her voice dripping with sultry implications. It's time for your treatments, Nugas. You'll be a good little girl, won't you? Oh, how he would scream at first, wail and cry as the first parts of me were formed out of his unworthy flesh. How he bemoaned his dick shriveling away over a tendy, never shutting up about it even as the deep, hollow agony of his bones expanding, shrinking, and reshaping themselves caused far more physical pain. How he feared all the ways she might touch his body, up until he realized how much he wanted her to and feared that instead. How he started completely losing hope when he knew she was breaking him, and that I was clawing free from the cracks. And eventually, I ripped him apart. Shaking my head, I start walking again, furious at myself for stopping in the first place. Just the name of a dead man shouldn't cause me this much discomfort after 2 years. Despite its meaning, I like the name Nugas. My lady gave it to me, after all. I just wish she was willing to finish her toy. To remove the last of him from my mind. I want to be rid of him completely. I want to be entirely hers, even in memory. There is nothing I hate more than my memories of hating her. Even if that wasn't ever me. Sky. Capita chides, and I hear the dull thwack of him being lightly smacked. She is not a thing. And that's not her name, Lady Vesuvius adds. I'm far from the room at this point, but my lady designed my senses well. You of all people should know better, Capita continues. Oh, you have a problem with my sex change magic, do you? Lady Vesuvius asks blandly. I can always turn you back, if you like. There's a pause of silence as Sky takes a moment to fully soak in how completely screwed he is, which I enjoy from a distance as I activate the runes that will trap him and Capita in this manner. Okay, Sky eventually says. I can admit when I've made a titanic mistake. Statement withdrawn. I'm just saying, it's always weird to think about. Be that as it may, I'll thank you not to say that name in this household, Sky, Lady Vesuvius insists firmly. She can hear you, you know. Wait, really? Yes. There's another pause. Indeed. He's lucky I'm too good a host to spit in his tea. I suppose if there's one thing on which I can agree with Dominic, ugh, it makes me feel awful just to think his name, it's that Sky deserves what's coming to him. I truly hate the man. And not just because he's had sex with Lady Vesuvius. Though that doesn't help. That all aside, Lady Vesuvius deftly transitions, it's sad to hear you're leaving. May I ask why? Because the artist lives, Capita hisses. He seeks me. He wants me to serve him again. I won't. We're done with all this shit, Vesuvius, Sky sighs. We just want a safe place to live our damn lives, you know. We're just gonna hole up, be together, maybe, you know. Start a family, Capita whispers. I walk into the room carrying the tea just in time to see Lady Vesuvius' eyebrows raise with surprise. Oh, are you planning to know? She corrects herself. This is too sudden to be a future thing. Capita, are you pregnant? Each of Capita's bodies nervously glance at the other, then at Sky. Yes, I suppose I would be nervous as well if Sky was about to be responsible for raising my child. I suppose I probably can bear a child, if I wanted to. That's odd. And a bit uncomfortable. I've never really thought about it before. Not that it matters, of course, since I only want to bed my lady. I voice none of these thoughts, of course, as I'm quite busy passing out the tea. We think so, yes, Capita admits hesitantly. We're not sure, but well, we want to be, so. May I ask which of your bodies? Penelope requests curiously, leaning forward a little. Or is it both? Capita fidgets some more. And no. Not both. Repulsion has it. We think. That would be the title of the body with teleport others and chaos implosion talents, when Capita is separate from herself. Likewise, the body that can teleport itself and create a jet of chaotic energy is titled evacuation. Though we use the term sparingly, given how she prefers to simply be Capita. I can certainly relate. Well, that's probably a wise decision, especially if the two of you are planning to live alone, Lady Vesuvius murmurs. One baby is more than enough to handle on its own. Although you're worried about the differences between your bodies, aren't you? The most obvious visible changes won't start for a while, but if you absolutely need it I can certainly figure out a way to get your other body to match, though that will be a different sort of discomfort, I suppose. The offer's appreciated, Sky says, nodding at Lady Vesuvius as I leave the room again to get the duck. I think we'll decline for now, but no matter where we end up we're just a quick teleport away, eh? I suppose so, my lady says mildly. Where were you thinking of going? I smile privately to myself as I hear the subtle shift in her tone. Ah, the pleasantries are over. She's going on the attack now. I suspect my lady does not, after all, have any intention of letting Sky and Capita leave her sphere of influence. She hasn't kept them hidden and safe for 2 years in order to allow them to gallivant off somewhere to not obey her every whim. I was thinking Sigulda, Sky answers. I still have contacts there. But Capita wants to make sure we're really far away, so she's been pushing to have us teleport all the way to Baldwin. Seems like an unnecessary unknown to me, though. I suppose I'm still a little confused. Lady Vesuvius lies easily. What makes you think ours isn't in Sigulda or Baldwin? Skyhope is the only place on the island I can confirm ours isn't. Wouldn't staying here make the most sense? What? Sky asks, surprised. How do you know ours isn't in Skyhope? Because I smuggled Vita inside and had her check, Lady Vesuvius explains. Her range is in miles now. She covered the entire city and the surrounding area. No ours. Besides, if I was ours, Sigulda or Baldwin would be my first choice of destination, because of the lack of church presence. Go somewhere without any experience dealing with liches, establish a massive power base with animancy, and maybe come back to take over Valka in my spare time a decade down the line. The duck is ready, I announce, timing my entrance to the dining room so that Sky and Capita are stuck thinking about my lady's words for a few moments while I serve everyone. When I'm done, I move to stand behind my lady in case she needs me. She normally never reacts to this, of course. Servants are to be known but not seen. Yet to my surprise, she twists her head to look at me directly. Nugas, she says slowly, making my heart beat with excitement, you may serve yourself a plate. If you'd like to sit with us, I mean. I can't help it. I start tearing up a bit as I nod in acceptance. Why yes, my lady. Thank you, my lady. Holy shit, that's sad, Sky mutters under his breath. She can still hear you, Sky, my lady reminds him, and I get to enjoy his embarrassed expression almost as much as being able to sit at the dining room table. Almost. I'm sitting at the table. Next to my lady. Because well, I didn't want to be presumptuous, but Sky and Capita are all on one end of the long table, so one of the seats next to Lady Vesuvius' seat was open, and it's the most convenient seat to participate in the conversation, so. Staying in Skyhope is still a problem without the artist, Capita eventually says, after everyone has had a while to enjoy my cooking. The church is still here. And I do not wish to be captured again. Never again. It was unpleasant. Well, I suppose that's sensible enough, Lady Vesuvius sighs, dabbing primly at her face with a napkin. I'm just surprised. I didn't think you'd just give up after all the work you've put in. There's a beat of silence during which I have to force myself not to laugh. What do you mean? Sky asks. You know I've always disagreed with your methods, Sky, Lady Vesuvius answers. But I've always agreed with your goal. You know I'm not the kind of noble you spent all that effort slaughtering, don't you? Fishing for compliments already, Vesuvius? Sky drawls. Well, I suppose you're right. You're a good biomancer and you do good things with it. You've proven you actually give a shit about the working class, not to mention the people below the working class. But what of it? You make improvements here and there, but the pigs still get fat. It turns out when you kill the pigs, others will simply come to eat the corpses, my lady responds. You had a purge, but no plan. You can't just kill your way to a better world, there needs to be a follow-up. Where are you going with this? Capita asks. The Inquisition did a number on you, Capita, Lady Vesuvius says. I don't think I've ever seen you this afraid. But what if we could make your problems with them disappear? What if we could do that and seize power from the greedy, and create a safe bastion against ours, all in one fell swoop? Sky and Capita glance at each other. We're looking to avoid conflict, Capita says. Not start it. We have a baby to think about. Do you think the Inquisition is going to stop looking for you just because you're not in Skyhope? Lady Vesuvius asks. Probably not, but it's going to be a lot less of a problem than if we were in Skyhope, Sky grunts. Not if the Inquisition is dead, Lady Vesuvius counters. You want us to fight the entire Inquisition with you? Sky asks incredulously. Oh, please, I don't do fights, my lady dismisses. I do one-sided slaughters. Weren't you just on my ass about the perception event being a slaughter? Unlikely, and it wouldn't be that terrible of an outcome anyway, my lady explains. Etna is a political ally, and the important thing is establishing the precedent of legalized animancy outside of the church. I'll pull a few favors to get you into the program, Capita, and you'll never have to worry about being a fugitive again. No offense Vesuvius, but I don't like the idea of the nobility having animancy, Sky grunts. Even if you're in charge. It does sound worrisome, I admit, but keep in mind that the vast majority of nobles aren't even mages, let alone skilled enough ones to quickly learn a new form of magic, Lady Vesuvius says soothingly. And besides, a temptation like that is a good way to start weeding out the corrupt and stupid ones. That's all of them, Vesuvius. Wait, really, my lady smirks. Ah, well. I guess I'll just have to run things myself, then. So what do you say? We wipe out the Inquisition, giving you both a taste of sweet revenge and a safe place to live in Skyhope. We replace the Inquisition with a non-religious animancy body that will actually do some watcherdam research and come up with a way to stop ours once and for all. And we do it all while Vita is distracting the brunt of the Templar forces, giving us plenty of time to teleport around the city and wipe out every Inquisition base here. There will be a few inquisitorial stragglers, but nowhere near enough for the Inquisition as a force to still exist. You won't have to run anymore. You can start a family in peace. There's a bit of hemming and hawing from the couple after that, but my lady quickly starts to convince Sky and Capita of her plan. It seems a bit, well, ambitious to me. 3 people against the entire Inquisition. Or is my lady going to recruit more? Either way, I suppose if there's anyone that can get away with this level of ambition, it's my lady. Eventually, she tells me that everyone is done with the tea, I believe, so I nod, collect the teapot, and leave the dining room so I can deactivate the anti-teleportation runes before Capita notices them. I doubt that my lady intended to take no for an answer, but she always prefers willing participants in her schemes to ones she has to strongarm. Both of them are probably already infected with something that will make disobedience difficult, but until they disobey there's no reason for them to know about it. I decline to rejoin the table, busying myself with cleaning up after dinner and other tasks. About an hour later, Sky and Capita depart. I return to the dining room to find my lady slumped over in her seat, massaging her temples. I am exhausted, she announces. The bath is hot and ready for you, Lady Vesuvius, I respond easily. Oh, thank the Watcher, my lady groans. What would I do without you, Nugas? I suspect you'd probably torture a lot more people, Lady Vesuvius. I answer cheerfully. She chokes, coughing a little as she starts to stand up. I opt not to react to that, continuing to smile and stand perfectly still. I suppose you're right, my lady eventually concedes. You can certainly torture me if you'd like to, Lady Vesuvius, I offer, eagerly hoping she takes me up on it. Ah no, she unfortunately waves off, starting to walk out of the room. No, that's quite all right. I can't help it. As she passes me in the doorway, I lean over and stage whisper into her ear. It's awfully cruel of you to make me want something so much, but never give it to me. She stares at me in terrified silence for a moment, then turns and continues walking towards the bath. Letting out a slight giggle, I follow from my proper place behind her. It's hard to imagine Capita and Sky raising a child, my lady says idly. It reminds me, actually. Did you know that Vitamin considers you to be my daughter? I laugh again. I did know that. She's very cute, isn't she? But she's wrong, of course. You could never be my mother. My lady nods at that, seeming relieved. You are my goddess, I continue. You crafted me from living clay, not as a child but as a fully new being. In every sense of the phrase, you are the reason for my existence. It would be silly to consider you nothing more than a mother. She cranes her head back to stare at me again. I give her my best smile. I do love it when you look at me seriously, Lady Vesuvius, I tell her. She seems to consider something for a while, then faces forward again, away from me. You may call me Penelope, she allows. If you wish. My smile grows wider. Yes, Lady Penelope. We say nothing else as we continue down the hall, but that's okay. It's time for my lady's bath, after all, and I wouldn't miss that for anything. I did not expect it to be this damn difficult to find a dragon. It's like they don't want to be murdered, or something. How long have we been out here again, Nora? I ask, my tentacles flicking outward to intercept a furious swarm of disintegration wasps, which are basically like normal wasps, except their bites inject some kind of magically charged chemical that rapidly dissolves everything in a cubic foot around the application site. Just over a 10-day, I think, she answers. We should probably head back soon. But we haven't even seen a dragon. I whine. I thought the deep forest is supposed to be where dragons live. I mean, it is. The deep forest is just a big place. You think if a Vrothizo ate that thing, they'd be able to vomit high-speed larks at people? I wonder. Oh Watcher, what kind of question is that? Nora complains, twisting up and somehow managing to glower at me without a face. Come on, Vita. That's disturbing even for you. I smirk at her, flicking my wrist to get her to retract her chain before leaping upwards, driving her blade into a nearby tree, and yanking myself up even further. The leech spitter jumps out of my range, but not before some of its projectiles hit what's left of the disintegration wasp swarm, a mistake that will not end well for the poor baby blaster. I didn't think it was that disturbing, I argue, hopping across the thick tree branches to where the wasps are currently removing the leech spitter's flesh from existence. It just sounds funny to me. And kind of cute. You think a Vrothizo that could launch entire other Vrothizo at people would be cute, Nora summarizes incredulously. I thought Vrothizo freaked you out in a big way. They used to, but they're not really much of a threat anymore, I answer, shrugging. It's like little disciples, you know. They certainly scared me back on our first mission, but now they're like free food. Not really intimidating. So I get to focus on their good qualities instead. I guess that makes sense. Nora admits. What exactly are a Vrothizo's good qualities? I shrug, nabbing the leech spitter's soul and slurping it down. Animivores are kind of spooky, but I also feel a certain kinship with them, you know. It's like whatever I am, it feels like it's a lot closer to a Vrothizo than it is to a human. Vita, Nora says sadly, even with this lich stuff going on, haven't you always been human? You certainly qualify as human in my book. My body is human, I correct her. I am not my body. Resting her on my shoulder, I hop back down to ground level, feeling outward with my senses to try and decide where to go. I suppose if it's been over a 10-day we should go back to the camp, as much as I don't really want to. There's so many responsibilities there. I'll be devastated if I find out that anyone is going hungry under my care, and that's the easiest problem that needs dealing with. I don't even know how to start dealing with the rest of them, though. I don't want to deal with them. Yet I don't want to be nothing more than a predator and parasite either. I don't want to give in to my urge to avoid effort. So regretfully, I turn to head out of the deep forest and start the journey back to camp. It's a long walk back, one that's probably going to take most if not all of the day, but I've never had much of a problem dealing with boredom. At least there's nice scenery to look at. It's a big upgrade from my cell. I'm glad we could come out here together, I say after nearly an hour. It's been really nice actually talking to you. Nora extends her chain, wrapping around me and giving me a light squeeze. Even the chain is made from the same Vrothizo's bones as the rest of her body, so naturally it's completely jet black. The feeling is mutual, partner, she agrees. I was always happy to listen to you from time to time, but it's been jarring constantly moving between bodies and hibernation. I've definitely got to thank what's her name? Margaret? I've gotta thank Margaret again for making this for me. Being able to talk is super cool. Yeah, Margaret is super cool, I agree. You, adjusting to being a scythe okay? I imagine it must be weird. It's a little weird, Nora confirms, wiggling around a little. But it's also pretty awesome. I mean, we fought Remus. We kicked his ass. I parried the sword of Skyhope. And that was back when I was just a dumb farming tool, not this sweet-ass magical custom war scythe that can fly and cut through souls. I sense her intent to show off a little, so I let go of her handle and watch her zip around through the air using the kineticism spells carved from metal on the inside of her shaft. I smile, soaking in the genuine joy she exudes as she whips through the air, ripping through foliage like it's water. She really does seem to be happy like this, which is surprising enough to be a concern. How much of, being okay with all this is the fact that you're a revenant, do you think? I ask. She slows and I catch her out of the air, her chain draping over my shoulders as she settles down. I wince. Sorry about that. I didn't have many opportunities to talk to you in prison, and things have been a bit crazy. Yeah, I get it, Nora sighs. I can't believe how wrong I was about the Templars. Ugh. Well, they didn't kill me at least, I mutter. You were right about that. Might have been funny if they did, though, Nora chuckles. What could you have done with Kasha the Maelstrom's body? Depends on if I get her talent or not, I guess, I shrug. I probably don't, though. Not unless I keep someone's soul intact while I possess them somehow, or like merge their soul with mine. And that all seems like it'd have its own problems. I guess that's true, Nora concedes, and the two of us fall back into silence. We're attacked a few more times over the next couple hours, but not by anything noteworthy. I haven't made a risen since the start of this trip, I want a dragon or nothing. The problem, of course, is that I don't have any idea what a dragon's soul actually looks like. My sensory range is so long that I wouldn't be surprised if I've sensed a bunch of them over the past few days, but I've never gotten close enough to the vast majority of the powerful souls I've detected to actually know what they are. It has been a bit frustrating. Also frustrating is the increased progression of my still mutating body. I've been eating a lot more food lately than I had been in prison, both physical and anima. The result seems to be causing me to grow new unwanted bits a lot faster. I now have a second, fully formed flesh tentacle growing out of the side of my torso, anchored between my waist and ribcage. I've also grown a new eye on one of my biceps and the opposite calf. It's getting seriously excessive. I remain lost in thoughts like that until I'm suddenly jolted out of it by the sound of a horrifying screech. Which isn't that weird in the deep forest, honestly, horrifying things screech here all the damn time. I recognize this particular screech, though. I've heard it 2 other times recently, each louder than the last, so I'm probably being followed. I mentally start tagging off the relevant souls nearby, trying to figure out if any actually dangerous ones are currently heading towards me. Sure enough, one is. Well, that's neat. Everything okay? Nora asks, having noticed me stop walking. We got some prey serving itself up, is all, I answer nonchalantly. And not a Vrothizo, for once. Oh, fun. I'm not 100% sure it will be, I admit, limbering up my hand by giving Nora a quick spin. Feels like it might be a white. A weird white. Unlike the ones in Skyhope that were made of dozens upon dozens of shards, this one feels more like a bunch of mostly to completely intact souls vaguely squashed together like someone left a bunch of caramel candies out too close to a fire. I can actually recognize a good chunk of the souls as belonging to various forest denizens, along with what I'm fairly certain on close inspection are no less than 3 human souls. Well, maybe they were human souls. I don't think they are now. Yeah, I don't think this is gonna be fun at all, I sigh, lowering myself into a combat stance. Play serious, Nora. Yes ma'am, she barks, pulling her chain taut and locking her blade into place. The abominable melted soul pile is heading towards us at a pretty rapid clip, but once it gets within half a mile of us it really starts to accelerate, its screech sounding out again and raising higher and higher in pitch as it approaches us at more and more rapid a pace. Just 10 seconds later, it's nearly on top of us. 5. 4. 3. I call out, using the same method I alerted my team to approaching monsters as I did when I was a hunter. 2. 1. 0. I'm already jumping out of the way when a thin line of gold rips through a tree to impale the ground where I had just been standing. It's less than half an inch thick but well over 20 yards long, judging by the width of the tree it just stabbed through to reach me. The golden color is strangely familiar, but only when I realize it's liquid do I recognize what it is. Ozoid. I call out. It's an animavo. Before I can finish speaking, the thin spear of golden goo suddenly flattens, expanding parallel to the ground in a rapid flash that completely bisects the giant tree from the inside and nearly does the same to my legs. I leap upwards, Nora extending to grab a different tree and pull me upwards moments before it gets sliced through as well. I thought ozoids were supposed to be like slow-moving scavengers. Nora squeaks. I mean, normally, they are. I confirm. This one just bit off a lot more than it could chew. A bunch of times, by the looks of it. Well, I explain patiently, we animivores have a slightly different relationship with food than the rest of you. While Nora and I bicker, the golden cutting plane below us snaps back together, forming a single, rapidly shifting mass of ooze only slightly larger than a person. It immediately starts to scream, a cacophony of discordant noise created by half a dozen separate sounds working in tandem. 3 of those sounds are human voices, shrieking, "Save me, kill us, and die," all at the same time. Hey, this thing has nearly as much social aptitude as you do, Vita, Nora snarks, and I glower at her with a few of my eyes that aren't doing anything else. Unfortunately, I don't have time to formulate a witty response, because the ozoid wight decides to stop screaming and extend 4 more ultra-fast spears made from its own body in our direction. I try to dodge out of the way, but the liquid spears immediately make a sharp turn to follow me, smacking into my greaves and hitting hard enough to knock me silly as they ricochet off of the invincible armor. I manage to turn my flailing tumble into somewhat of a roll as Nora yanks me up a tree again, the spears converging nearby to reform the screaming ooze mass. Before I can even finish processing this freakish movement method, the ozoid launches itself at me again. I'm a bit more ready for it this time, though, and track where its soul is stored during the attack, thrusting my tendrils that way in order to intercept. Unfortunately, the moment they permeate the ozoid's body I feel them start to get devoured, and I pull back, yelping in pain. Then I am, of course, slammed in the chest by all 4 slime spears, which causes me to fly backwards and slam into a tree. Then the tree explodes. Thanks to Nora's talent, my armor is functionally invincible. That is to say, it cannot be bent, broken, scratched, pierced, corroded, or otherwise damaged. Only truly absurd amounts of force enough to overpower all of Nora's metal-enhanced magical potency by a significant margin and still have enough energy left over to destroy the armor can break it. But not being broken by extreme forces doesn't mean it's not affected by them. Nora's talent doesn't make my armor weigh any more, and so I'm still fully capable of being flung around by heavy impacts. Which is bad, because I'm inside the armor, and while I'm pretty damn sturdy I'm decidedly not invincible. I'm not entirely sure what causes the tree to explode when I hit it, but I chalk it up under bullshit white stuff while I'm careening head over heels through the forest with an angry ooze monster chasing after my uncontrolled trajectory. My body is definitely bruised, if not suffering a bit of internal organ damage, but I figure I'll probably be okay as I crash through a few branches and start to slow my descent. It kinda hurts, but I've fought through worse. Still though, as I slam hard into the forest floor, I have to wonder how I'm actually going to kill this thing. You're on offense, Nora, I tell her, crawling to my feet and coughing out a small splash of blood. I can't yank it. Is cutting a liquid even a thing that will help? She asks. Probably not, I admit. So you're going to aim for the soul. A Vroth tooth blade should be able to cut it. I can't see souls, though, she points out. Yeah, I admit. That is kind of a problem, huh? Let me swing you when it gets close, but otherwise just slash at the biggest mass you can find with reckless abandon, I guess. Reckless abandon. Got it. Her blade unlocks from the shaft, chain rapidly extending to meet the incoming Ozoid head-on. Her twisting body clashes with the rapidly moving jets of ooze, spinning rapidly to cut them open as they curl around her to reach me. Out of the 4 thin golden spears of liquid, however, the one with the soul successfully dodges past her blind strikes. I flick Nora's shaft so she returns to me, readying a swing at the incoming mass of fused anima. You sure you can't yank this thing? Nora asks. Not without damaging myself more than I'm willing to, I answer. But you're right, this isn't going to finish things. All we're really doing is getting you uncomfortably sticky. Pfft, Nora snorts for some reason. Huh, holy shit. What? I ask. What? Before she can respond I feel a snap collection of mana underneath me, so I shove my tentacles down and break the spell before it can form. The Ozoid screams at me again. Anyway, why can't you yank it? Nora asks, still laughing slightly. Too tough. No, it just eats me back, I answer. Best case it'll try to integrate part of me into its own soul, which Actually, wait, that could work. I dig my tentacles into my own soul, pulling out a nice, big control shard. Let's see if this does the trick, I smirk. Hey, gooey. Quit wailing ominously and come eat. It does so, launching my way yet again. I shove a tendril inside it, which hurts like hell, but I manage to drop my shard near its core before getting flung through the canopy again, though this time I barely manage to land on my feet. The Ozoid follows me, magic blooming from behind as it tries to pinball me with explosions again. Stop, I order, and the precise attacks dissolve immediately. My shard tries to seize control from the dozen other souls inside the Ozoid, and while it's far from a perfect success it certainly causes enough chaos to make the poor creature start having a seizure. Hey, it mostly worked. I announce happily. Kill us, the Ozoid hisses. Can do. I answer cheerfully, lifting Nora up to start carving chunks of its soul out of its body. After all, I want to try to save the human souls if I can. Unfortunately, the more I try to carve them apart the more confident I am that at this point they're just one single oddly shaped soul. I can't find a safe way to break it apart back into the people it used to be. But the longer I take in the attempt, the more my shard gets integrated into that freaky melted soul mass, and the calmer the Ozoid becomes. By the end of my impromptu attempted scythe-based surgery, the poor thing has stopped flailing around in a mixture of fury and agony and is now just humming contentedly in a little ball at my feet. Shit, he's kind of cute. Now I don't want to eat him. Hey there, buddy, I coo, squatting down next to him. My gooey buddy. My gooey goober. How are you doing? Kill me, Gooey chirps affectionately, reaching a pseudopod up to squeeze my hand. Ah, I murmur, patting the top of his mass. Yeah, we're totally keeping him. Of course we are, Nora sighs. I spend a while giving my new friend some extra sticky pets and scritches, then leave him with orders to stay close enough to hear me but otherwise do whatever he wants. Gooey seems pretty smart, and understands me perfectly. It's probably all the people's souls that went into making him, though I don't think he's a person himself. Or I guess it's not a person itself. Gooey isn't technically male or female by any metric, but it just seems weird to call him an it. Whatever. I can think about it on the way home. I'm pretty sore after all that, but my body doesn't stay hurting for long. It rarely does, these days. No, it comes with other problems instead. A couple hours later, after catching and devouring a number of additional soul snacks along the way, I suddenly double over as an intensely revolting feeling shivers through my body. Eventually it settles on my shoulder, where a horrid itch blooms as new muscles start to twitch to life underneath my skin. A flesh tentacle. I'm already growing another flesh tentacle, and much faster than before. Why? Why is this ack? Vita? Vita? Hey, are you okay? Nora asks, hovering protectively around me. I focus inward, but not all the way to my mana ocean like I usually do. Instead, I walk the threads of anima that spread throughout my entire body, tracing where my mana is going and what I'm doing with it, consciously or otherwise. It moves, flows, and gathers itself to my wounds, to my muscles, and of course to my shoulder, where it twists and flows and changes my flesh into something else, something new. There it is. I just have to reach out and stop it. I feel myself take conscious control of the area, pulling the mana away, but as I do I'm hit with an unexpected dread. I still hate my shoulder. It's still wrong. I don't want a flesh tentacle. But I don't want not a flesh tentacle either. Both manifestations of disgusting meat sicken me equally. The flesh tentacle isn't worse, it's just drawing active attention to a hatred I would otherwise just be ignoring. It's not any more offensive, it's just a deviation from the status quo. And so as I twist my essence to remove it, my soul yearns to answer the question, what should I do? Instead, what wouldn't I hate? Because the core of my being is so desperate to find the answer to that question it's willing to grow fleshy facsimiles of itself in random areas just to hope that they'll somehow be better than the current state. That, and the fact that I'm rapidly reaching the limit of what my body can handle. My bones can't get tougher, my muscles aren't getting any stronger, but my body is still getting fed so much food and so much power that it doesn't know what else to do with it all. I'm just not right. My body is like a shoe I've worn since I was 6 years old, and it's growing eyes everywhere because it needs new holes for the toes to stick out of. I have to change. My current vessel isn't enough. So if not this, my subconscious challenges me, then what? What do I want my body to be? And I don't have an answer to that. I seethe in quiet fury the rest of the way back to camp. I'm still thinking about the problem when night falls. The more I think about it, the more issues I have. I don't consider myself human and don't particularly want to be human. Yet the best things in my life are all human, and I don't know if I would have been physically capable of appreciating them without a human brain guiding my soul. All the other masses of mana that surround my ocean don't really feel I don't know. Alive? Aware? Was I a person before ours put me in a human baby? If not, will I stop being a person if I abandon my flesh? I barely even feel better when I feel Penelope teleport into camp, strutting towards my tent like she owns it. And who am I kidding? She pretty much does. If she wants anything here, I'll let her have it. Sure enough, I can't so much as muster up a glower when she throws the tent flap open. Vita, she greets me with a tired smile. Did you kill that dragon? Nope, I grumble. Never even found one. Ah. Unfortunate, she says. Well, I need to talk to you about our plans regarding the Inquisition. No, I mumble. We what? She asks, blinking. No, I repeat. Cuddles. She tilts her head, smirking at me. I'm sorry, what was that? I can't quite hear you. I am the queen of the broken and the dead. I declare. And I demand cuddles. A foreign monarch, she muses. Unfortunately, as a first lady I think I have to declare war on you, now. No war, I groan. Gimme cuddles. Please. She sighs dramatically, entering the tent and closing up the flap behind her. Well, I suppose if you're bringing your dusty old manners to the conversation, of all things, I've no choice but to give in. How would you like to oop? I yank her towards me with my tentacles before she can make any more mouth noises, curling myself around her in every way possible. Obligingly, she falls into silence, hugging me tight as we lie on the floor of the tent, my exhaustion and stress slowly leaking away in her arms. This right here is something I learned from my human body. The simple joy of touching a person that I love. Whatever it is I become after this, one thing's for sure, I need to be certain that I'll still appreciate this feeling. Squeezing my tendrils tighter around her, I find myself poking around her but more than usual. Something weird is going on here. I dance my tendrils down her spine to the end point where it should vanish into the pelvis, but it doesn't. It keeps going. I grab the extra bit of unexpected Penelope and give it a little tug. Are you growing a tail? I ask her. Finished figuring that out, have you? She murmurs back. Indeed I am. Ha, I mutter. Like, on purpose? On purpose, she confirms. I've been planning one for a while. Could you explain why? I ask. Not that I don't like it, I mean. I do. How did you make that decision? She hums happily, taking a moment to decide how to answer me as relief floods through me. I forgot. I forget too often, really. But I'm not on the streets anymore, and I'm not stuck in prison either. I'm not alone. And this is definitely a problem Penelope can help with.